It may not necessarily be a good time this Christmas season to shop for a house in this country, but sure as heck is a good time to shop for a quarterback in this country. Check out the transfer portal. It is ridiculous. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It makes for good talk. It makes for good storylines for a guy like me that's talking college football with all of you every day, all year, 24/7, 365. But it is crazy. And to me, unless somebody's going to fill me in on some of these particular situations, doesn't always make sense. Welcome to the Voice of College Football as we talk the game we all love with you each and every day here at the Voice of College Football. We've got 25 team channels. 25 team channels. So if you love Ohio State football, if you hate Ohio State football, that means you probably love Michigan or Penn State. If you love Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, USC, Alabama, Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Notre Dame. Those would be the last two that I forgot. Or just love the Big Ten or the SEC. We've got a channel for you right here at the Voice of College Football, and we're going to be announcing a new channel here very, 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 very soon here at the Voice of College Football. On the eve of National Signing Day, the new National Signing Day, which of course now is in December, here we are talking college football transfer portal, i.e. free agency of college football, which is much crazier than the NFL. It's been likened to NFL free agency, but consider this. Most players in the NFL are signed. They are not free agents. They are signed to a contract of 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it may be. I am guessing the average NFL contract is somewhere in the 3-year range. That means most of the players in the NFL are under contract and therefore are not free agents. I would guess that somewhere in the range of 10 to 15% of the NFL players are free agents. That means everybody else is on a roster, not looking around. In college football, if you play college football, and you are on a roster anywhere in college football, even beyond the FBS, even beyond the 130 teams that we talk about here, you're a free agent at any time. If you're not a free agent today, and tomorrow you wake up and you look outside and you're in the middle of Washington State and you don't want to be there and you're thinking, man, it's gloomy up here. I don't want to be here. I'm going to be a free agent. You can be a free agent anytime you want, at any whim. You didn't like the food at the cafeteria today and you're playing at Kansas State University. You didn't like the cafeteria. Didn't make your mashed potatoes quite right. They were a bit lumpy today. I'm going to transfer. If you were walking around campus at UAB this afternoon as a football player, you didn't like the way somebody looked at you. Just didn't like it. And you know what? Now you're starting to look around and you're thinking, hey, there are other people giving me those looks as well. I suddenly just don't really care for it here. I need a change. I'm out. You can be a free agent whenever you want. Check out the quarterbacks who are in the transfer portal or who have recently entered the transfer portal and found a home. It is astounding. It is astounding. We just tonight finished up our Nebraska Cornhuskers live show with Greg Peterson from Husker Online. Please check it out on our Nebraska channel as we come your way live every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time on our Nebraska channel. So please check out that show. Nebraska is on the heels of Miles Brennan, former LSU quarterback. And if Nebraska is able to land Miles Brennan, Can they expect him to be an All-American? Probably not. But is he a capable quarterback who has proven against SEC competition that he's capable? Yes. He is a proven Power 5, upper division, upper tier, LSU caliber Power 5 quarterback. Yes, he is. Miles Brennan. He had 11 touchdown passes through the Tigers' first 3 games in replacing Joe Burrow last season. Okay. That's a good get because as we look through it, there's about 10 quarterbacks who have proven against top-level Power 5 competition that they can get the job done, that they are capable, that they are most likely going to be one of the top half quarterbacks in your conference in the Power 5. And there's only about 10 of them out there that are proven. There's a ton of quarterbacks, most of them unproven. So if you're looking for a quarterback, you better get on the market right now, because in our previous hour prior to the Nebraska show, we did our Iowa show, 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central every Tuesday on our Iowa channel. Please check it out. Iowa needs to upgrade a quarterback. I am stating that right now for a team that went 10-2 in arguably the best conference in America in the Western Division. And I'm not saying the Big Ten is the best conference in America, but I'm saying it's arguably, it can be debated, the best conference in America. For Iowa to have achieved everything that it did this season, the offense, in particular, the offensive line and the quarterback were pretty bad. And the play calling and the development of the offense, bad. Coaching and offensive line and quarterback. Iowa should be in the market for a quarterback, and they have some good options here that they could go after. And if they don't, I will be critical of Kirk Ferentz and Iowa football. I would like to see Iowa go after one of these available quarterbacks. Let's check out the transfer portal. Quarterbacks available right now. And I'll also highlight the quarterbacks that were available that entered the transfer portal who have made a decision and found a destination, just to highlight the level of quarterback play we're talking about that is in the transfer portal for the 2021 off season. Number one in your hearts, Ohio State fans. Number 1 in the recruiting rankings, has never thrown a pass. Quinn Ewers, of course, from Ohio State to Texas. So he's found his destination. Cameron Ward from Incarnate Word of FCS play, an All-American there, looking for a destination. Dylan Gabriel has left UCF, where he is one of the all-time passing leaders in school history, has left UCF to go to UCLA. Spencer Radler. We found out this news late last night. We posted a video on the SEC channel and elsewhere. Spencer Radler leaving Oklahoma on to South Carolina. I believe that this is a tremendous pickup for South Carolina football. This is a team that played 3 quarterbacks, marginal quarterbacks this past offseason, and Shane Beamer led them from 2-10 last season before he got there to 6-6 in a bowl game. And now he's got a capable quarterback, number 1 quarterback in his class, Spencer Radler. And I know he has his detractors based on what happened this season at Oklahoma, but Spencer Radler threw 28 touchdown passes this previous season, led his team to a Cotton Bowl, won the Big 12 championship, and then even this season, had he remained the Oklahoma starting quarterback, they would have been fine. Believe me, they would have been fine. It was shown after a few weeks in which, after Caleb Williams made that initial splash, he had his issues throwing the ball downfield as well. Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback and suddenly becomes the best quarterback, I believe, in the SEC Eastern Division. That'll be for 2022. Spencer Rattler, South Carolina, huge pickup. I'm going to call him so far to be the Kenneth Walker of 2022. Kenneth Walker, I pegged coming from Wake Forest to Michigan State. Didn't cause a lot of fanfare at the time, wasn't being talked about at the time, but Kenneth Walker, I'd seen him play a number of times at Wake and believed that he could be a difference maker at Michigan State. I did not predict that he would be a Heisman Trophy candidate. I did not expect that, but 1,000 yards, 10 or 12 touchdowns, I did expect. And Kenneth Walker, I called this one a long, long time ago as a great get for Michigan State. Same thing here, Spencer Rattler, South Carolina. Max Johnson, another LSU quarterback. They've lost Miles Brennan, Max Johnson. Max Johnson, son of Brad Johnson, good quarterback, lefty. He's out there, available. Keaton Slovis. I posted videos on this on the USC channel. Keaton Slovis has announced that he is entering the transfer portal. He's out there, available. We're talking about a guy that threw 30 touchdowns 2 years ago. Bo Nix. And this is what I was alluding to off the top. When the transfer portal first started rolling, just about a year and a half ago, it was the summer of 2020 in which the transfer portal really became a thing. It was obvious that it would be quarterback driven in terms of that being the one position on the field where there was only one player on the field, one starter. It's not like the offensive line. If you cannot find a starting spot on your current team's offensive line with 5 starters and with 2 backups that probably work their way into the rotation and have a ton of playing time, so there's 7 guys for your average college football team that play along the offensive line. If you're not good enough to play for your team, then you better be looking for a downgrade in terms of school and program. But if you're a quarterback, you could be really good and just be behind Trevor Lawrence. And so it's more understandable that you're going to go look for a spot where you can compete. Okay, the initial transfer portal entries seem to make sense. As we go on, they seem not to make as much sense, at least from a football standpoint. We don't know what these guys are going through. We don't know what is attracting them to different sites or pushing them away from their current situation, but it is most likely football related, and I don't know what some of them are thinking. That doesn't mean that they're knuckleheads or I'm saying that they're not thinking. I just don't know what they're thinking because, again, the initial transfer moves made sense to me. When I'd look at them, I'd be like, okay, I understand that. I understand that, ... Now I'm seeing moves like this. Bo Nix. He's the starting quarterback at Auburn. Where's he going? Auburn. He's the starting quarterback at Auburn. Nobody's challenging this. There was a couple game stretch there where he didn't play the best, and there was a possibility he was going to lose his job, but he's the starting quarterback at Auburn. He's moving on. We mentioned Miles Brennan possibly going to Nebraska. Zach Calzada. Now, this isn't necessarily as drastic as the Bo Nix example, because while he was the starting quarterback at Texas A&M this past season, it was because of an injury. He did not win the job. Haynes King won the job, the true freshman, or redshirt freshman who played a few snaps in 2020. And so Haynes King won the job. Zach Calzada just came in when King got knocked out against Colorado and finished the season. So maybe he's saying that he doesn't believe that he can win the job next season. Those are the substantial players. In addition to, let me make sure I haven't missed anyone. I think there's one more here. I would say Adrian Martinez, of course, one of the statistically, one of the most successful quarterbacks in the history of Nebraska football. He has entered the transfer portal. That I get too. Even though he's the starting quarterback in Nebraska, probably would win the job again in 2022. It's just a situation where it would be better for him to move on and get a fresh start. It's better for the program as well. Good move, Adrian Martinez. And we have him connected to Cal and Kansas State. He's been seen at those practices. Jack Plummer, part-time starter at Purdue, finally beaten out by Aiden O'Connell, but he has in the past beaten out Aiden O'Connell for the starting job at Purdue. He's in the portal. Cameron Cooper, former starter at Washington State. He's in the portal and has yet to find a destination. Zach Annexstad, he's been a starter at Minnesota before Tanner Morgan showed up and took the job. He's in the portal and looking for a spot. And Jack Miller, the Ohio State four-star who's never played significant ball at Ohio State, he's in the portal as well. Let's crank up the phone lines here at the Voice of College Football and see who's on the line. Hello, who's on the line?
Hey, it's John DeLon. Perhaps you could help settle a little debate we're having in the chat.
Okay.
Being that since Luke Fickell has been at Cincinnati, he has finished no higher than 41st in recruiting, according to 24/7.
Okay.
And Alabama has finished no lower than 5th. And I don't think we need to get into a debate as to who has the better coaching staff. Let's just say that Alabama's coaching staff is likely significantly better. Now, when you factor all that together, just ballpark the odds of Cincy winning.
All right. Before I do that, I want to apologize for everybody in the audience. For some reason, this is not connected, so I'll kind of recant John's question here. He's asking about the Cincinnati-Alabama matchup as I try to connect the phone to the soundboard here. And just looking at, you're saying that Luke Fickell's roster does not have a recruiting class better than 24th in the country? 41st in the country, 41st in the country, because I looked at their current class and it was somewhere around 55. Okay. And then, of course, Nick Saban's not had a class. He's basically had all number one recruiting classes. They've been 2 or 3 or whatever, but does that really matter?
I think it was in that time, it's 3 1s, a 2, and a 5.
Yeah. So your question is what the chances are that Cincinnati beats Alabama. For me, it's in the 5 to 8% range. I don't think it's going to be much of a game.
That high?
That high?
Yeah, I think that's high. I think they're closer to the 1 to 2% chance. Like
1 to 2%.
We're played 100 times. I don't think there's any way Cincy wins it more than twice.
Okay.
Like, I'm just curious, like, what do you see happening that toward they could have a 5 to 8% chance of winning?
Well, I watched the Peach Bowl last year.
Well, okay. Georgia was missing like what, a dozen players?
Yeah.
COVID protocols.
Yeah, they were missing some players.
3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were missing some players, and Cincinnati was missing not as many players, but significant players as well. They missed 2 or 3 defensive starters, and certainly one that was drafted high. So, yeah, there's no question that Georgia was at a more of a disadvantage, but yeah, I don't know what the Football Power Index would say about it. I'm guessing it would be somewhere in the range of what I'm stating it to be. And I'm not using that as a backup for me because I don't believe in the Football Power Index, but that is just what comes to mind as being another estimate.
Okay, and I just wanted to go something you said last show about the way Miami handled Manny left him hanging for a day. And you were like, there's no reason to do that other than they're classless. And I'm stealing this.
Well, no. I didn't say that there weren't reasons to do it. I didn't think that there were valid reasons. There were ethical reasons to do it. I think there are reasons to do it. If you want to keep him as head coach as a backup plan, sure, do it.
Well, I mean, the spin I heard was that it was because they didn't want to lose any players to the portal, and they didn't want to lose any players to their current from their current recruiting class. And I think they only lost one backup player to the portal. So if that was the objective, then apparently it worked. I mean, do you still think it was a bad move? If that was their objective, that they were okay with keeping him dangling for a day, and as long as they kept their recruiting class and their team together, do you still think it's unjustified?
Okay, before I answer that question, I would like to get some feedback from the chat because I'm a little confused here because I am not hearing you through my earpiece, which is a bad indicator. But I see your audio registering on my soundboard, so I just want to make sure that everybody can hear you. So can everybody hear the caller? But can they hear you? I want them to hear you.
Let's see. Can't hear.
Okay.
Barely hear.
Okay. So they still can't hear you. All right. I don't know what's going wrong there. Okay.
Let me let you go and you can get that sorted out, okay?
So let me just let you know that, and again, we still have two things to clear up here real quick here. So one would be that according to the Football Power Index, Cincinnati has a 28.5% chance of winning.
Wow.
Alabama 71.5.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Okay.
That's just entirely too high. Is there any way you can place a wager with the Football Power?
Well, I agree with you that it's too high. I don't think it's too high as much as you do. I don't think it's a 1 to 2%, but I think Alabama's a substantial favorite, and of course they do as well. At what are we sitting at? Like 12 points right now? I think it should be more like 17 or 18, something like that is where I would put it. And then the other thing to again, just to clarify my point about Miami's handling of Manny Diaz. First of all, it lasted more than a day because I knew about it for well over a day before he got fired. So if I knew about it, and I'm not one that's sticking to social media, looking at Twitter and looking at all this other stuff. So people knew about it far before I did. I'm thinking this was at least a 3-day matter that he was dangling out there. So he's being employed by Miami and he's out actively recruiting. It's not like he's on vacation or he's on his weekend. He is working his ass off recruiting for that school. And sure, he's getting paid, but he gets paid via salary anyway, so it doesn't matter. And he is being thrown out there. I just think it's unethical, and I think it's Bush League. Now, whether it benefits Miami or not, those are two different things. We all get faced with situations in life where we can take the high road and do the right thing, and it may not necessarily, at least on the surface, immediately pay off because we kind of hurt ourselves in a business sense. But if we believe in the right thing to do, then we're going to believe that that's going to pay off eventually. And so, hey, Miami did what they did. And maybe there's some things about it that I haven't looked into, but I think it's pretty clear cut. They were negotiating with Mario Cristobal, which is all well and good. Fire your coach. Fire your coach and look for another coach.
Well, I mean, I do agree that it's ridiculous if we don't get Cristobal, then we're going to have Diaz for another year. That they probably should have fired him, but I don't think it was ever their intent to keep Cristobal.
As is my point, because their intent was to keep the recruiting class and the team together. And I don't know. I don't think it was a completely horrible play. A little classless, sure, but I think this is a case where the end might justify the means.
Well, again, when it comes to doing what's right and wrong, I don't believe in the end justifies the means. I agree with that statement if that part of it's inconsequential, but that's just my thought. And again, there might be more to it than what I'm stating. And I'm not putting Miami out there as the only football program
whatever
or university
you just did,
that's capable of doing
whatever
this
you
or
just
has
did,
done
they're
this.
saying they can hear you now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, it connected. So yeah, I'm not trying to make Miami out to be some renegade program that they're the only ones that do anything like this. I'm not saying that either.
Okay. And one last quick question. Have you done a preview for the LSU K-State game yet?
I have not. That is one of those oddly situated bowl games between the playoff games and the national championship game. I think it's the only one
Correct.
other than
January 4th.
Yeah, the only one other than the New Year's Day games that's just kind of sitting out there, which is fine. It gives us some football to watch. So I have not looked at LSU and Kansas State.
Do you have any thoughts off the top of your head about that game?
I think it's similar to some other matchups where I hate to try to guess motivation, but we all know it's part of the bowl season. And I think it's overplayed, overrated, and overguessed, but I fall into that camp as well, where I've got to kind of gauge that. And I think it's easier to know where Kansas State is versus where LSU is. LSU is going to be playing for, I don't even know who they've named as their head coach for the game, because I'm almost positive, yes, Ed Ogeron had determined that he was just coaching through the regular season. So somebody else is going to coach the game.
It's Brad Davis, the offensive line coach.
I did hear that. Okay. And so yeah. There's no question LSU is a more talented team. They've got a more talented roster, but it's been severely compromised by opt-outs and the like. And of course, their two cornerbacks aren't playing.
Painfully aware.
Yeah. But how much do you care about this game?
I'd like to see them win. I mean, the seniors have been through a lot this year, and I'd like to send them out on a winning note, But the 15 extra practices is what's obviously the most important thing. Okay, well, I didn't want to keep you too long, and that's really all I got. So on to the next caller, and thank you.
Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. Before we hit the next call, we got Jack here. What are the odds that Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy switch roles next year? What are the odds? That's a good question. So the odds are going to be much higher if Michigan does not win a college football playoff game. So understand that Cade McNamara has accomplished a lot. He has accomplished more than any Michigan quarterback has since 2004 minimum. And of course, it can't be measured against a college football playoff appearance because that had not existed. So that's going to, even if that doesn't have anything to do with the level of play on the field, he's responsible for that. He has a share of the responsibility. So Jim Harbaugh, being an old school guy, is going to be loyal to that. There is going to be an amount of weight and allegiance put on that he got Michigan to this point. Now, if he wins a playoff game or wins a national championship, if he wins a national championship, how in the world do you not start him next year? If he wins a college football playoff game, it's going to be difficult for him not to start. So I understand, and I think we all understand that there's a difference between saying, based on the merit of your performance this year and what you've accomplished and the team's accomplished under your leadership, you have earned this for next year, versus just saying, we're blind to everything that happened last year. We're starting camp and it's a free and open competition. If that's the case, then JJ McCarthy is a huge opportunity and strong odds of just flat out winning the job. But there is I don't want to say just tenure component here, but a successful tenure, especially at that position where you say, you did this for us until you lose this and lose this status, you're the guy. So I would think that would be relatively low. And with every win, it's going to get lower and lower and lower that McCarthy can unseat McNamara. Teams are going to have this issue all over the place. And we've seen it the last few years. It's getting worse and worse and worse, where any player, especially a quarterback who cannot start for a team, is going to be a serious risk to enter the transfer portal. Also, we're going to have to keep into consideration that these coaches have to be, I believe, the way I'm looking at it, more short-sighted at that position than they were instead of saying, hey, we're in pretty good shape because we got a senior quarterback. He's going to start this year. And we've got a sophomore, and he's pretty good. And if he continues to develop, he'll be ready to take that job next season in 2023. And then this freshman trails him. And if everything works out and then we keep recruiting, we're going to have somebody else, probably this freshman, but maybe somebody else we recruit and sign ready to go. All that's out the door now. Out the door. Not that you can't have that kind of long range, perfect scenario, but you got to be ready to deviate from that immediately, because basically you need to look at this season. This season, we were talking Iowa football just a couple hours ago on our Iowa live stream, and they've got two marginal quarterbacks, Alex Padilla and Spencer Petras. Okay. They have a quarterback in this class who's a 4-star, and they have a quarterback that just committed for 2023, a 4-star. So Iowa's in better shape from a quarterback standpoint, from a recruiting ratings standpoint at quarterback, than they've been in a while. But you can't think that these guys are all going to be there and kind of line them up as they're going to most likely develop and then take the starting reins. No, you need to get the best quarterback in the door this year. So if you're Iowa, you need to go get Zach Calzada or Bo Nix or somebody, or try to get somebody like that can start right now and let the rest of it fill in, and then reevaluate next season. You got between the end of the season and August camp, and you want that quarterback to be in play before and on campus and ready to learn the offense before spring practice. That's best. But let's not forget that Joe Burrow stepped on campus in July. And it wasn't the July of his 60 touchdown season. It was the July of the previous season, but still led the team to a 10-3 record and a top 10 finish. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, how's it going, Mark? This is Emmanuel.
Hey, Emmanuel.
I'm very sad today.
Happy signing day, if that's what you said.
No, I said I'm very sad today.
Oh, you're sad. You're sad. I'm sorry to hear that. Did your dog die?
Yes, almost. Slovis is leaving USC.
Okay.
That's horrible.
Yes. All right. So yeah, I'm guessing that he is just seeing the emergence of Jackson Dart combined with possibly Caleb Williams coming. Possibly it is less likely by the day. And then also take into consideration that Lincoln Riley probably wants more of a mobile quarterback.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you look at, he had Murray, he had Hurts. So, what I was thinking, for Slovis, a perfect landing spot, it's almost too perfect that it won't happen, would be either at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin or at Mississippi State with the run and gun with Mike Leach, like he was doing with USC. What are your thoughts?
Well, and just looking at the way those two offenses worked this year with the quarterbacks that they had, Matt Corral and Will Rogers, I don't think this is necessary, but they certainly benefited from both of their mobility, which Keaton Slovis would not give them. But both of those coaches have succeeded without mobile quarterbacks. So based on the style of offense with the air raid, that's the fit that works. But I'm just stating that they both benefited from having an extra dimension in their quarterbacks this past season.
Yeah. Where would Slovis fit? Maybe Georgia?
Yeah, he could follow his buddy JT Daniels to Georgia. Georgia, sure. The way Georgia runs an offense right now, I don't know that Georgia necessarily, unless all those 4 and 5 stars are that disappointing, they've got a full quarterback room as it is.
Mm-hmm.
They are loaded with quarterbacks. I don't think Keaton Slovis would necessarily want to leave USC to run into 4 or 5 stars in the same room.
Who would you put him at? Where would he go? Where do you think some potential landing spots for his style? Because he's a fantastic quarterback.
Yeah, he is. Well, I just mentioned Iowa a few minutes ago. Iowa played a similar quarterback in Spencer Petras, who is basically a statue. And I don't necessarily know that the offensive style meshes with what Keaton Slovis wants to do. And it's much different than what he's used to. But once you drop back to pass, it's a similar offense, if you know what I mean. Once the play call is a pass, then whether you're going to throw it 45 times or 25 times, it's similar. And I know that Iowa needs a quarterback, so that would be a good move for them. I don't know if it's a good move for him. Who else is out there?
How about Penn State or Miami?
Penn State or Miami? Well, Miami's got Tyler Van Dyke. They do not need a quarterback. I don't see anybody beating him out. He was that good the last 8 to 9 games of the season. If you want to see some quarterback play, look at what he did. It's pretty astounding for a first-year player. Yeah, there's all sorts of places where he could compete for a job, but I don't know if it would be best for him to go, let's say, to Cal or Washington or Stanford.
Oregon, who knows, potentially.
Oregon, he would have a big leg up on experience. They've got 2 really highly touted players that are waiting for the job there.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate to lose a guy with that much talent. I mean, USC lost JT Daniels, who is a very good quarterback, and then to see Slovis, who is an outstanding quarterback, go. But I think one last thought. I know that USC's got some quarterback, but what about Bo Nix coming to USC with what's his name? out there with a new offense. I think it's his type of what the coach is looking for, that type of quarterback, that type of athlete to fit that system.
Yeah, Bo Nix is similar to Caleb Williams in that way. He's a dynamic runner, maybe the best in the nation. They're both elite dynamic players in terms of avoiding a rush and taking off and threatening a defense. And they both have cannons, and Bo Nix just doesn't always know where the ball's going to go. And he doesn't necessarily make the best of decisions, but he's getting better at that. And he was better at that most of this season. Yeah, I would think that he may fit the offense better than Jackson Dart. So that's a possibility. Sure.
Nice. Yeah, we'll just see what happens these next couple of weeks. It's going to be really interesting. I just hope Slovis doesn't end up in a worse situation like Arizona or something like that.
Yeah, well, there are better destinations for him. If he's going to wind up at Arizona, my goodness, I just gave him about 5 options, and here's another one. If you're just talking about not necessarily the offensive fit, but just going to a better football program than where he might land, Minnesota's another one. Tanner Morgan, he's, first of all, Keaton Slovis could beat out Tanner Morgan even if he stays, and Tanner Morgan's been playing college football forever, so I don't know what decision he's going to make this year, whether he's going to move on or take his extra. This year may have been his extra COVID year. I'm not positive, but Keaton Slovis could beat him out anyway. So there's another good team that's a top 25 type team that Keaton Slovis could start for.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, Mark, thanks. It's just a sad day. I mean, to lose that caliber of a player. The guy's phenomenal, and I think he's going to, wherever he goes, I think he's gonna wreck shop like he has. All right, Mark, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Emmanuel. You have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
All right. Appreciate this super chat coming in here. We've got Wedgie Ocean on the line, who's asking, do you think Sean Clifford coming back for his 6th year does more harm than good in that young quarterback room? Well, Drew Aller's the guy, of course, that everyone's excited about coming in for the 2022 class. He shouldn't necessarily be, not that he couldn't win the job, especially if he comes in as an early enrollee, but at least these coaches should get a break with anybody that's a true freshman, that they shouldn't expect to win the job in year 1. So he gets a bit of a buffer there in starting Clifford over Aller. With Levis gone, and who's the Oklahoma quarterback gone? Can't think of his name. Micah Bowens gone. I don't know who else is in that Penn State quarterback room that necessarily would need to be getting the job over Sean Clifford. So I don't know where that's a negative. Play the best guy, and if Sean Clifford legitimately wins the job again, Penn State needs to be playing. They should not be a rebuilding program where they're thinking, okay, this is a throwaway year. Let's play the younger guys. This is not, a number of situations in like Major League Baseball where you do that. If Sean Clifford's the best quarterback, then he plays, and that's the best situation for you because you're Penn State and you're trying to win a Big Ten championship every year. If he's not the best quarterback, then regardless of how many starts and how much experience he has, he should sit. And then you really don't lose there, because what can he do besides just play out the last end of his career and be gone? So I understand what you're saying. If Sean Clifford is not going to win a championship, and you've got quarterbacks behind him that can, and they're going to get frustrated by sitting, then are you going to lose one of them? Yes, that's a possibility. But again, I will say that you want your best quarterback to stay, and he most likely is that guy. And if he's not your best quarterback, then don't play him. All right, everyone. So if you own a small business or you would like to own a small business and really don't know where to get financing, I've got a good answer for you. Get Business Credit. Check out our guy, Josh Van Horn, on Get Business Credit right here on YouTube. Head on over there. Just put in Get Business Credit in the search bar. And his business, his YouTube channel is blowing up. Why? Because he's helping people that are starting small businesses or already have small businesses but need lines of credit. So you own a small business and need funding, financing. Josh Van Horn's your guy. Get Business Credit is your channel right here on YouTube. Get on over there. Get Business Credit. You've got my permission to leave this show right now and go on over to Get Business Credit. How about that? I've never said that before. Maybe the only other permission I would give you like that would be to head on over to some Elvis video and check out a great Elvis performance to miss the content here at the Voice of College Football. But that's for anybody that's starting a business, has started a business, doesn't know where to go for financing, or if you've got a great idea, you've always wanted to start a business, but you've always thought it was beyond your means because of your personal credit score or because you don't want to divulge information like your social security number. You don't need to do that here. You will not be asked to do it with Get Business Credit right here on YouTube. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George in Portland, Oregon.
George has to identify himself as being from Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Keep behind enemy lines.
Yes. I am going to put up a banner for you, George, that I would like to put up for everyone when they call in. I need somebody that would type these out for me because, you know, when you watch a call-in show and it says at the bottom of the screen, it says, caller, George from Oregon.
Good thinking.
So let's see.
I still don't see it.
We're getting it. It takes me a while to type, especially when I can't even see that far.
George.
And then after I type it, I got to blow it up to make sure I actually spelled it correctly. There we go. All right, George.
Hey, MVP 24 just asked me in the chat if I need a rescue squad, and the answer is hell yeah, I need a rescue squad. Bring a large U-Haul and take me to a piece of off-grid property. And if I want to be on the internet after that, I'll walk over to the highway and sit there and get on the internet. I got to get off grid, man. I can't do this.
Yeah, what can we do for you out there, George?
Just bring you all, take all my shit to your abandoned property, and I'll make a place where when you got to run and hide, you can come visit. All I need is a yurt, and you know you can turn an alternator from a car into a water wheel or a windmill. I got this shit all figured out.
George, I thought you told us about a year ago that you were on your way cross country to Florida. I think it was to Florida.
Mark, I had house plants worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I gave them all the way to the local Thai restaurant and that other restaurant. And you're all like, thank you. I gave half my best shit away, my leather couch that I never moved. I'm not moving to Eugene, Tony. That's insane. That's worse than Portland. Anyway, there are no cops in Portland. You can't even call 911 in Portland. We're on our own. This is Mad Max.
Well,
We've had like 1,200 murders this year, up from 20. You know,
Well, George, seriously here. What are we going to do?
Listen, as long as Georgia keeps starting Stetson Bennett, I can deal with it. I just laugh and laugh all day. It takes all the pressure off of reality.
Okay.
Just keep saying Georgia, going to Georgia talk shows. I'm blocked from all the Georgia channels now. They used to love me. Now all of a sudden they blocked me. I don't know. Okay, listen, what was the audio problem earlier? It looks like you reached over and flipped a switch or plugged something in. What was wrong?
Every so often, my phone will default to some kind of disconnection of the Bluetooth, and it takes me a while to find that in the settings and find it and fix it.
It just seemed pretty quick when you found it.
Yes, it was.
Somebody in the chat asked me to ask you to put the phone number on the screen.
Oh, yeah. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day and they said they were laughing because they said, Mark, you don't even have to put the phone number on the screen. And I said, yeah, I feel bad about that because if I didn't get any calls, it would hit me sooner that, oh, nobody's calling because the phone number's not on the screen, but I get plenty of calls. So it never dawns on me to put the number on the screen. There it is.
Hey, Mark, what do you think about Florida hiring Corey Raymond? The LSU really has been DBU for the last number of years. Can you believe we got that guy?
LSU, Ohio State. Yeah, we could have an argument, but you're right there.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. You can throw Ohio State.
So, from everything I know, everything I hear, he's an up and comer. He's a high riser. Yes, that's supposed to be a great move. Better than your previous defensive coordinator, Mr. Grantham. Absolutely.
Hey, this is off the subject, but Dr. Detroit said I need to move to Detroit. He said they don't have riots in Portland. They burned everything down decades ago. That's a pretty funny comment. I think he's just being facetious, though.
Yeah, Detroit has had its issues for not just a few years, but for like 50 years.
If you think Detroit is rough, move to Gary, Indiana. You'll go back to Detroit. You know, you'll be like, I miss Detroit.
Yes, Gary Anderson. Gary, yes, Indiana is infamous.
Hey, somebody in the chat used the word facetious earlier, so I used it. I said, I like the word facetious. And somebody else said, what does it mean? And I said, it means I'm just joking around. That's basically true, right? I was just being facetious. Means I was just joking around, man. Like, don't punch me. Just kidding, right?
Yeah. Somebody told me that as soon as I gave people permission to leave the chat, 21 people left. Guess I shouldn't do that.
What'd you do?
I gave people permission to leave the chat to check out Get Business Credit channel.
Oh, they'll be right back. Hey, Mark.
Yes.
Bo Nix.
Yes.
And name, image, likeness. How is it possible that some pimple cream hasn't got a hold of him and shown before and after? I see those infomercials all day. He gets that could be worth millions in royalties. It could be a lifetime gig.
Yeah, how would you feel like that about that if you're a college football player and you have NIL opportunities, but all of them are for pimple creams?
Mm-hmm. Show me the money.
I've often thought that. Yes. I've often thought that when I'm watching a TV show or a movie and they have an obvious character in the show or the movie who's obviously supposed to be extremely ugly, supposed to be extremely obese or whatever. I just kind of sometimes I wonder about that person, the actual person, not the character, the actor, but the person and how they feel about being constantly cast in movies and films as the ugly girlfriend or whoever it might be. You
right.
Kind of have to take a hit to your ego there.
How has Stetson Bennett not got $1 million contract for gnomes? You know what I mean? I don't get it. Hey, I was watching Shark Tank, their Christmas edition on Friday, and one of the guests sold gnomes. Tell me there's not some kind of psychic thing going on between us here. Gnomes, Christmas gnomes. And we got to contact those people, Mark.
We do.
Yeah, it's to get you a sponsor. A sponsor those gnome people. Or they should sponsor you, I mean.
Yeah. And
it might work. We could tell them to make a Stetson Bennett gnome. You know they would sell millions of those until after Michigan beats them. Then it's over.
Yeah, then it's over. But shoot,
hey, John Delane in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Delane in the chat wants me to ask you about the 512 team playoff. And he said if you ask why, it's because we want Mississippi Gulf Coast to have a chance. Put them in there too.
512. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love it.
We'll show that damn basketball tournament who can run a real tournament. It's just out of hand. Can't we just make the whole season a playoff from the first game? If you lose twice, you're out, something like that.
George.
No, that's not going to work because Cincinnati will be in there every year.
It's out of hand. There's a 4-team playoff. We only want to make it 8 or 16. That's out of hand.
Okay, 8. Look, if you make it 8, it's just going to be the same thing, but more of it. It's going to be Florida every year, LSU every year. It'll be all SEC and 3 other teams. It's not going to work.
It's going to be
who knows? The whole landscape could change.
It's going to be the same teams every year, and the first 2 you throw out are Florida and LSU.
Well, just perennial top 10 teams. You know, there's more. There's other ones. You know,
I don't have an issue
Those
with
two
that.
come to mind.
Every conference needs to be represented. That's all there is to it.
Yeah,
I will say that forever.
Right.
All right.
Can 8 teams cover? Can 8 teams cover it? Can we represent everybody with 8?
We can represent the Power 5. We can. Yes.
So nobody else have a chance. Cincinnati won't be able to get in.
We'll give Cincinnati a shot. Sure. You give one to the group.
No,
of
I'm
5.
asking with an 18 thing. With an 18 playoff, would there be room for a Cincinnati or a Wake Forest or a BYU or?
Okay, you're all over the map with your examples, but Wake Forest plays in the
Okay,
ECC.
you're right. Yeah.
So your 8-team playoff would have 5 conference champions from the Power 5. You'd have your group of 5 rep, and then you'd have 2 wild cards.
Okay, there's 2 wild cards.
Yeah, this year your 2
All
wild
right,
cards.
Rico said you're trying to pull the rip cord. Rico
Ex-
said you're trying to pull the rip cord, so I'm gonna get out of here.
Okay.
All right, love you guys.
All
Merry
right,
Christmas.
George. Merry Christmas. So, for example, your 2 wild cards most likely this year would be Ohio State and who had a great record, Notre Dame. Those would be your wild cards this year. Your 5 conference champions, Cincinnati, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Bam. There you go. And certainly the process can be more complicated than that. I've worked it all out. We'll go through all that during the off season. I've got a notepad back here on my couch where I have run through, and I will post a video here in the next couple of days, all the 8-team and 16-team scenarios for what just happened this season. So if you went by this season and you went through an 18-team playoff, 8-team playoff, and a 16-team playoff in a few different formats, what that would look like and how much better that would be for all of us. All right. Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Jeremiah.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good. With the recent transfer of Quinn Ewers to Texas and the recent influx of O linemen I think Sarkis saw what happened before the season started and started building this recruiting class together. So we're ranked number 6 in overall with the transfer portal, ranked 5 overall. I was wondering what you think of how Stark was able to turn this recruiting class around from a 5-7 season to contending for a top 5 class.
Well, whatever he's doing, it seems to be pretty similar to what was done before him. So think about it. Tom Herman had more successful seasons than 5 and 7, but not much. And he was able to deliver top 5 to 10 classes. And Charlie Strong certainly turned in his share of 5 and 7 seasons, and he had top 5 to 10 recruiting classes. So I'm not minimizing what Steve Sarkisian has done, in that this is the place to start. This is a great start to this next calendar year of football to bring in this level of recruiting class, but it's not like it hasn't been done before. I want to see him develop the players, put the scheme on the field, have them actually be teams that have perseverance and resilience and effort and determination and character and win games. So there's a lot more components that have to come with it, but he's off to a good start with this class.
Yeah. The one thing I want to touch about those previous classes, I know you mentioned before the season started that Texas had recruiting holes in their class. But one thing that especially with this class is a little different than the rest of them is I think the year beforehand, they only had 2 O linemen and they were low rated, and there aren't really their players in the pipeline. They got to have work on them to be ready to go. But this class, they've got the highest rated O lineman since 2009 under Mac Brown, and I think that's something that Texas has missed is tough, big guys in the trenches that can, protect the quarterback, especially these last 4 years with Sam Ellinger, and this year with Casey and Carr, they're just getting mollywopped every single game. I was wondering, I think Kyle Flood is turning this around like he did. Well, not turn around at Bama because I was already kind of saying, but Bama definitely had a fallback after this season until the playoffs when they finally got together against Georgia.
So out of this class of 23 hard commits, they've got 4 offensive linemen. And of course, the guy that you referred to, we've got to credit Sarkisian for getting under these circumstances because he just became available because of the Mario Cristobal situation at Oregon. And that's, of course, Melvin Banks. So that was great to see him jump on that immediately and bring him in. And as you just mentioned, he's a top 15 player in the country.
Yeah. But I'm kind of excited because of he's the highest rated player since 2009. And Mac Brown was the last person to win a national championship and go to a national championship. So I think that's a good sign. But I also want to talk about the quarterback situation with Quinn Ewers, because we have Casey Thompson and Hudson Card each with a year in the offense, and Quinn coming in. But Quinn, of course, is a generational talent. I think that he's actually probably more ready to start than either of those 2 quarterbacks, even though he's only played a couple snaps with handing off the football at Ohio State. But high school film, and he's the highest rated quarterback since Vince Young. So I wonder what you think on the outlook for this season, the next season's quarterback at UT is.
So you're basing your statement about him being ready based on what? Just his sheer talent?
Yeah, sheer talent, and because his mechanics, his accuracy was just otherworldly to see in high school. Most players don't just drop bombs downfield completely accurate in the basket, and he hasn't been starting there. Just like you can see that really. I think the most accurate comparison that we've seen lately is probably Caleb Williams, but I think he's more of a athletic star. I think Quinn Ewers is just pro style passer that really fits and starts seeing more than Hudson and Casey do. And Hudson and Casey both been completely inaccurate at times this season.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to make an evaluation on Quinn Ewers just because he's obviously, from a talent perspective, the best coming into college football. And I saw a crazy video that showed him, during passing drills, throwing the ball from all sorts of different arm angles. That was super impressive, but that's not leading a team, reading a defense, playing hurt, escaping the pocket, all that sort of thing, throwing the ball with a helmet in your ribs, all those things.
Yeah. I'll agree that you definitely have to see him go into this game this season and play it. But I just think he probably is a starter. I just can't see Hudson or Casey doing it. And I'm pretty sure one or both of them are going to transfer with the way the recruiting is. But I don't know if Hudson would, because how hot the market is for quarterbacks right now. I think it'd be smart for Hudson to stay, and with Casey with 1 year left, I think he's probably going to bowl. That's just my opinion on the state of things, and I'm excited for tomorrow, with signing day starting for the next 3 days. So I'll let you get back to the other callers.
Cool.
Thank
Well, we will be here for National Signing Day, so I appreciate you calling in. All right. Let's keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
The real MVP. You're batting like 7th tonight.
Yeah, I had some priorities I had to take on. I didn't get my first, but
it's good to have
I
priorities
made
in life.
them. That's what matters. So the first thing I would like to ask you, since it's National Signing Day is tomorrow, is if you're a Florida, a USC, or a Miami, one of these big powerhouses, how nervous are you because you're either in your 50s, 70s, or 100s in recruiting?
Well, Florida State's not. Florida State's doing well. Okay,
Florida,
yes,
Miami.
Florida, yes. So I would be less based on what I know of, not just those rankings, but based on what I know about what's developing in those places. I would be the least concerned at Miami by far, because I don't think that they're going to be sticking around the 55 spot for very long. I just think that, number one, they've got a small class right now, and it's not going to stay a small class. So that 55 ranking is based on, like, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's anywhere from 8 to 12 commits, and that's going to be a 20
They got
commit. 8. So they still have like 12 spots they're going to fill. And we may not know really how much ground they've made up by the end of this week, because that's probably going to get pushed off, a lot of that, to February. And they're talking to a lot of high-level people. Mario Cristobal's only been on the job since what? Maybe last Monday, whenever it was. It's been about a week he's been on the job, where Billy Napier's been on the job longer. Florida was doing worse in recruiting the last couple of years than Miami. Well, I shouldn't say the last couple of years, the last year. And I just think that they have more work to do at Florida. And Miami's got better players in its backyard than Florida. Florida's got excellent players up north and in the northern part of the state, but Miami has more. If players are going to stay home, Miami's in great shape because they have the market cornered in the state of Florida on the south end, as opposed to Florida and Florida State fighting with Auburn and Alabama in the north. Now, I'm oversimplifying that, so nobody jump on me to say Alabama goes to South Florida and Ohio State. I know that, but I'm just talking about in general, players are going to stay close to home. Then Miami is in a better spot than just about anybody.
The next thing I would like to ask you, Mark, is there's a huge battle this year for the number one spot in recruiting between Georgia, Alabama, and Texas A&M. If you had to take a guess of which one of those three would hold the one spot at the end of it, who would it be?
Alabama. And that's
Is it
without
just as simple as because they're Bama?
Yeah, well, to a certain extent, because sitting here sizing that up, I don't know exactly, nor do I have lists of names of guys that are considering A, B, and C at those various schools. I know Ohio State's number 4, but if you look at the average player rating, they're number 2. And yeah, so that's just a ballpark guess. I don't, to answer that question sufficiently, I'd have to have some kind of list of names of what players are on the fence, considering those 3 or 4 schools, and then take a shot at anticipating where they're going to go.
Okay. My next question is, what are your thoughts about Michael Penix Jr. transferring to Washington?
And my last thought about the previous question would be, if you look at recruiting days, national signing days under Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, they typically get a lot of wins on National Signing Day, like 3 to 4 key big time players. Urban Meyer, now Ryan Day, have taken a different approach to National Signing Day, where they pretty much have it locked up. That's what it is. They have no other guys on the fence, and what it was 3 days earlier is what it's going to be. There's no suspense. There's no drama. So the Bama and Georgia ratings typically get even stronger on the final day. Okay, Michael Penix. Michael Penix, more so than any quarterback that I can think of in the country. I'm thinking of watching him this past season against Iowa before he got hurt, and against Cincinnati and a few other teams, where on the same drive, he could look like the most talented passer in the country, and 3 plays later look like he has no idea how to read a defense, where to throw the ball, makes a horrible decision. So some players, that can be coached out of them because they're intelligent guys that want to learn, and they're coachable, and they're bright. And other players will always be that. And I don't know which one he is, but based on how horrendous, pathetic Washington's offense was this past year, that is definitely a great move on their part.
Okay. And the final thing I would like to ask you about is, what are your thoughts about Ryan Day to the Chicago Bears rumor?
Well, I will say, unlike most Ohio State coaches that kind of reached the pinnacle of their career, and that was their goal, to coach at Ohio State. So I'm talking Woody Hayes, Earl Bruce, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, that all stated, we're Ohioans. That's where we want to coach. That's the number one job in the country. That's where I'm going. Ryan Day's not in that batch. He's I'm sure he values his job, saying, hey, this is arguably the best college football job in the country. It's certainly one of the top 5. It's a great job, but I'm going to do what's best for my career, and I have no allegiances to this job or to this state. And so I would think that if the Chicago Bears are going to pay him more money and be able to prove to him, at least they can't prove it, but they can explain and try to convince him that they are going to be a good situation going forward, then I would think that he would seriously consider that.
Okay. And I had one more thing I thought about. Sorry. For the possible national championship game, I'm not sure how many people realize this, but if Georgia played Alabama again, Georgia would be a slight favorite. So, do you think, Mark, that's reasonable for Georgia to still be favored after Alabama whipped them if they were to meet up again?
No, I would not make Georgia the favorite myself, but that's me.
Because what I've seen, they're either going to be a 1.5 or 1 point favorite.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
just because a game's played and it has a certain outcome, that doesn't mean you automatically revert all your numbers and all your evaluations of those teams completely to that one game. So, for example, of course, Georgia was a touchdown favorite. They lose by 17. You don't say, well, Alabama beat them by 17 on a neutral site, therefore they should be a 17-point favorite. Of course not. But based on what you're telling me, Vegas has evaluated that previous game, the SEC championship game, to have altered their line by about 6 points.
Yeah. Mark, I love the Kentucky blue
Oh, yes.
clothes you're wearing tonight.
I saw all sorts of people trying to guess and label what blue this is, and there's no doubt that it's closely aligned with Kentucky blue, more so than any other team in the country.
Oh, I've got a jacket. Oh, I bet you I've got that exact same jacket.
Well, this is not a Kentucky jacket. It's
a dark blue jacket. I've got a dark blue jacket in my closet.
I don't know what symbol this is on my chest here. Who made this? I don't know what brand this is.
So the final thing I'd like to say is, Mark, you're only 139 subscribers on your USC channel. Last time I promoted it, people were like, USC, what is he talking about? So could you explain that to the viewers?
On the USC channel, I believe we've got about 8, 10, something like that. So we would love to get the USC channel to 1,000. So if you know anything about YouTube algorithms, they really start to push channels out front once they see that you are popular enough and have gotten enough work in to get to 1,000 subscribers. So once we get these channels to 1,000 subscribers, they tend to take off fairly well and become pretty stable. So we would next like to target, and I would like to thank everyone who helped push our Iowa channel to 1,000 subs. So please do so with USC. And if for some reason you just can't stand the thought of being a subscriber to a USC channel for a long time, you know what? Once we get well past 1,000 subscribers, unsubscribe if you really want to, but help us get to 1,000 subscribers on our USC channel.
Yeah. And I know there's importance for USC because I'm not sure if you know this, Mark, but your most popular video on your channel is that USC video you uploaded about Lincoln Riley a few days ago.
I noticed that. I think the all-time voice of college football video before that was an Ohio State-Michigan postgame that had about 45,000 views. And this Lincoln Riley video's got like 63,000 views. And I actually had a different conversation about Lincoln Riley and possible recruiting violations that I posted on the Oklahoma channel. So it's not the same video, but it's the same subject. And it's got like 40,000 views over there.
That's crazy. That means a lot of people want to hear about USC. So go over and subscribe to USC. Or USC channel. Have a great rest of your show.
Thank you so much to Real MVP. I appreciate it. Have a good night. You know what people don't want to see? This has been clear to me, even though people request this from time to time, people that love Group of Five football that say, Mark, talk about the Group of Five. Mark, produce some Group of Five videos. You know what? Okay. The average video on this channel does about 4,000 views, something like that. The last time I ran the numbers, about 4,000 views. This Lincoln Riley video, 63,000 views. Billy Napier, when he got the Florida job, I posted a video. It's got like maybe 25 or 30,000 views. Some other things when we had all that news concerning Texas and Oklahoma expansion this past summer. Those videos and live streams did great. Appreciate everybody being here. The live streams, you guys make those work. They do great. And especially when you know they're coming. But my goodness, you know what kills a channel? And I'm killing myself by doing it. I wanted to preview every bowl game. And I was going to preview every bowl game. But now I don't believe I'm going to do that, because I've posted about 6 or 7 videos with Group of 5 bowl game previews. And they all, like, they're beyond horrible. They're beyond horrendous viewership. Beyond, like, when I had 500 subscribers, these would have been poorly viewed videos for then, not 32,000. When I had 500 subscribers, if I put out a video and it had 200 views, I'd be like, okay, that's a waste of time. Now, can you imagine when I produce like 7 or 8 bowl previews of Group of 5 teams and they get like 200 views? You talk about a waste of time. So we will probably put that to rest. You know what? Not probably. We will put that to rest, because that was a complete waste of time. So first, and what kills me is I want to do that. And I was excited to have those conversations. I brought on Steve Helwick from SB Nation to go through the Toledo, Middle Tennessee game, whoever they're playing, whatever bowl game that is. I can't keep track of them, but all the Group of 5 matchups, and nobody's watching them. So yeah, that's not just a waste of my time in regards to like wasting my time. That's killing the channel. So understand, when you got like 30,000 subscribers and you post a video that's got like 200 views, basically you're telling YouTube, my content sucks and nobody likes it. Therefore, YouTube is saying, this guy's got 30,000 subscribers, got 200 views on this video. People must hate his content, and I don't know why they're subscribed, but they are subscribed, but they're not watching his videos. So we are no longer promoting him, and it can kill a channel. So I've got to be more careful of doing things like that. So if anybody wonders why I only produce videos on certain subjects and certain teams, or as much as I say, you know what, I would like to do Kansas State videos, or I would like to do Purdue videos, or I would like to do Stanford videos, I would, because I would like to talk about some different teams. But you know what? YouTube tells me, no, Mark, we're going to kill your channel. So we can't do that. We cannot do that. So unfortunately, when I am independently wealthy, I'll start a Group of 5 channel. And I'll start a Group of 5 channel that nobody watches, but it'll just be fun. Uncle Rico says I should start previewing high school games. There you go, Hank. Thank you so much for letting everyone know that they should be hitting up the like button. Thank you so much for that. To Real MVP 24, Mark, you should do live streams previewing 6 or 7 bowl games. Well, you know what? Some of these are intended to do that. So, for example, tonight, my original thought this morning was, okay, I was going to make the title of this live stream Best Bowl Games Past and Present. Then I thought, not past, because we can talk about that in April. We can do a live stream or post videos, and we can talk about, you know, funny bowl names, the Blue Bonnet Bowl and the Garden State Bowl, and stupid bowl names and interesting games and interesting matchups. And we could talk about history during the off season. So then I trimmed that to best bowl games, best bowl matchups. And I thought we'd be talking about North Carolina and South Carolina and Iowa and Kentucky and Ohio State and Utah, or whoever. I personally think Arkansas and Penn State is a game that I want to see. That comes to mind as a good bowl matchup. So we were going to talk about good bowl matchups. But then you know what? I thought the more these transfer portal news items came out, I thought people are going to gravitate more to that than bowl games by far. By far. Uh-oh. Uncle Rico is telling me something not to do, but I don't know what he's telling me not to do, and I'm not going to be able to heed the advice of Uncle Rico without knowing. That's a dangerous place to be in right there. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
This is Alex. As an Iowa fan, what quarterback should they be looking at in the transfer portal?
Yeah, so a couple hours ago, we did our Iowa Live show, and I was talking about that with Corey Bratta. And so there are about 6 or 7 quarterbacks who would be a decided significant upgrade from what you've got right now, who are experienced big-time quarterbacks. Not trying to sell them as the next Trevor Lawrence, but really good quarterbacks. So if you wanted to go in the Spencer Petras mode of a guy that's immobile but can really throw it, and this guy's more successful than Petras, obviously, and that would be Keaton Slovis. So you can go that route. If you want to go with somebody that's got a NFL cannon arm and can make all the great throws and probably is the most talented thrower that is still mobile is Zach Calzada of Texas A&M. Then, Bo Nix would be intriguing just because he can run around and improvise. And I don't know that Kirk Ferentz would be much of a Bo Nix fan. I don't necessarily see Bo Nix playing for Kirk Ferentz. So I think that's an unlikely matchup. So I would think that Calzada would be my first choice, and then Slovis would be my number 2 choice.
Well, we need to upgrade that position.
I'm sorry, what?
We need to upgrade the quarterback position.
Absolutely.
Features is not very good.
And they should be able to do it. And they have the opportunity to go out there. They're a top 15 program in the country. They should be able to find somebody who's an upgrade.
Yep. Thank you for the call.
Hey, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Yes. For some reason, I don't see Iowa going out and doing that. I think they're going to stand pat, play the 2 quarterbacks that they already have, and just think that that's okay. Why they don't? They're just not and this is partially to their credit, and part of their success is that they are conservative and they're stubborn and they stick with their plan, which mostly has benefited them. But there are downfalls to not being flexible. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Eshawn. We talked a couple days ago.
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. So I've only got one question for the day, and I don't remember an off season where there's been this many high profile hires from high profile programs. I mean, USC, LSU, Oklahoma, I'm missing some obvious there. Oregon, Miami. There's 5 right there, and even the teams like Virginia Tech, who are that 3rd tier, I would say, programs. They're even making kind of big hires. So I don't remember an off season where there's been this many coaching hires. Do you remember something like that?
I don't know if there have been as many coaching hires because when you think about it, so I looked at this one year and I tried to track it for about 3 to 4 years going back, and it seemed as though there was typically about 8 or 9 coaches that would get fired the day after the season or somewhere in that range. And now we see coaches getting fired at different times. So this is the first time, number one, that I can remember this many coaches getting fired in the middle of the seaon at prominent places: TCU, Texas Tech, USC, Washington. Maybe I'm missing somebody. There's 4 schools right there. I don't know. Dan Mullen was pretty much at the end of the season, even though there was a game left. But there's 4 coaches right there at Power 5 jobs that got fired mid-season. So that was number one. That usually wouldn't happen in the past. These guys would get fired typically the end of the season. Number one. Number two, of course, there's a domino effect. It's not just the 5 guys that get fired. It's
obviously.
then they leave other jobs and the dominoes. And the only places where the dominoes don't fall is if a coordinator comes from the NFL to take a job, or a coordinator comes from another position within college. Otherwise, if their head coach is leaving to get other head coaching, then it just, as we've seen it's gone from 8 or 10 jobs to another 8 or 10 jobs plus. So anyway, you have that factor, but this is the most prominent jobs I can remember ever coming open in one off season and changing. Oklahoma, USC, right Notre Dame, LSU, Florida. Yeah.
Miami.
Oregon, exactly.
And so, speaking of that, this may be putting you on the spot right here. What would you say you had every single job offer in America from all 130 FBS schools and you were a head coach? What would you say the top 10 jobs in the country would in college football?
Top 10. Not
necessarily
in order.
ranked, but just like who would,
sure.
Or you can do in order, but like.
Yeah, it would be difficult for me to do them in order right this second, so I'll just lift it off the top 10. My top 10 would be Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan 6, Texas 7, USC 8. We've got 2 more. I'm going to go. That's tough.
Would you put Clemson in there?
Well, that was the first one I thought of, but I'm also trying to detach myself from what's going on right this second. So over the last 7 years, Clemson has been, but I don't know if that's going to continue necessarily. Yeah, probably.
Run there.
I guess Clemson and Texas A&M. There's your 10.
A&M, that's interesting. Well, historically, A&M obviously isn't a top 10 program, but the way they're recruiting right now, the facilities, the stadium, all of that obviously is a factor into it.
Exactly.
So,
I'm sorry, we kind of lost you there. Oh, I think we lost our caller right there, unfortunately. That's always an interesting conversation to talk about the top jobs in America. Another video that we will pursue with the off season to rank. We'll rank the current coaches. We're gonna do so many rankings this off season, and of course, we're always open to your requests. But we'll rank coaches. We're going to rank every team. So the top 25 that actually makes sense is going to be the top 130 that actually makes sense once all the bowl games are played. We're going to rank everybody 1 through 130. And we're going to rank all the coaches, at least the top 10 in America. We'll rank all the coaches in each conference. Going to rank all the quarterbacks in each conference. Once this settles down, we actually know who's playing where, and we'll keep going. There was one off season in which I didn't necessarily complete this all the way, but I came close. And why I haven't done it this past off season, I don't know, because I'm doing this full time, and I did this back when I had the Cam Underwood says the secret day job. I'll call it the known night job. When I had that, and I still produced videos during the off season where I did the top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, offensive linemen, tight end, defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, corners nationally. And then I ranked the top 5, I believe it was, all those positions in each conference. So we'll do something like that. Also, it hit me the other day, and I didn't do this last year and maybe not the year before, but it was fun to do and fun to see the response from some of the players. So maybe we will do it again as soon as the bowl games are over. And especially since we have built up more subscribers and viewers and so forth, is that we will hand out, man, I think I've got my perfect guy to possibly, he works in wood though. Where's George when you need him? George, are you listening to me? He could think of something like this. We need like a plaque that could be made. So here's the thought. Our Voice of College Football Conference Players of the Year. So I want a Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. A Voice of College Football SEC Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. All the way through the Sun Belt, the MAC, the 10 conferences, Offense and Defensive Players of the Year. So that would be 20 awards. And I did this for 4 or 5 years at least. And it was nothing more than, I wouldn't even shoot a video. I did a couple times. But otherwise, all I did is hit these players up on Twitter and say, congratulations, Bryce Young. You have been named, and I put his stats in there, 41 touchdowns, 4 picks, You have been named Voice of College Football SEC Offensive Player of the Year. And I would tweet it to him. And I was amused at how many players actually looked at this and was like, they like recognized it. They found it to be valuable. They were like, thanks, appreciate it. I was like, no problem. So we will do that again this year. We have to make sure. I have got to do something to make sure that I put that on the to-do list at number 437 and that we actually cover that right when the season's over. I got to jump on that immediately and have my, maybe I should have you guys vote. We could come up with some odd votes, though. We've got too many Ohio State fans, too many Michigan fans, too many probably Miami fans. Those 3 I know for sure. I don't know about any. Where else are we heavy? We do pretty well on Florida videos. We do pretty well on Nebraska videos. We probably have a lot of Nebraska fans, too. Other than that, I don't know for sure. So, yeah, our vote total might be skewed a little oddly. May not be real fair. We could give it a thought. Okay, we got Uncle Rico with the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that so much. Asking for my thoughts on Lane Kiffin's comments. Have we created a free agency with the portal? Yes. Is NIL becoming pay to play? Pay to play. Hang on with that one. Are our pets' heads falling off? So the last comment there is a bit grotesque to think about there, Rico, but I appreciate you being here all the time, Uncle Rico. You are a ardent and faithful and loyal viewer and commenter and contributor. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So Lane Kiffin, like him, hate him, scoff at him, whatever. He says what's on his mind. And concerning this, he could tell he is frustrated. And frustrated, but understands this is the way it is. And this is the dilemma. The dilemma. This would be it. We live in a free society. Thank God we live in a free society. And as far and as long as I have the strength to fight for it, I know we will live in a free society, God willing. Because we all know, if our eyes are open, that there are threats out there to try to take a free society away from us. So let's understand that. All right. That being said, that means for speech, that means for money, that means for property, that means for all those things. So in this case, it's only fair, it's only right, it's only just, it's only the American way and only the capitalistic way to allow these players to benefit from their likeness. If somebody wants to pay for my autograph, if somebody wants to take a picture with me and pay $10 because I took it on my camera and I'm going to give it to them, whatever it is. Where'd that go? Anyway, I lost track of somebody wants to pay for this beautiful Voice of College Football woodwork plaque here. Somebody wants to pay for that, then I'm going to benefit from that because I have done some work, or regardless of whether I really worked for it or not, somebody has shown value in that. Therefore, I should be able to reap the benefits of it. Well, I can do it just because I'm 30 years older than these guys. Why should they not be able to benefit from it? So that's the positive. The positive is that this is the way it should be. They should be able to earn money from their fame. On the downside, it's out of control and it's affecting decisions. I made the recommendation. Now, this is not thought out. This just came to me and it came out of my mouth. I made the recommendation today during the Nebraska show, I believe. I made the recommendation that there should be something here similar to the NFL draft grade. And I don't know what this would look like. Again, it's not a thought out idea, but 5 to 10 years ago, we had players opting for the NFL draft who had no business to put their names into entry for the NFL draft because they were nowhere close to being draft eligible caliber players, but they listened to agents and family and teammates and their own ego. And so they put themselves and left early for the NFL draft. And many of them were shot down, did not get drafted, and it ruined their careers. Okay. Well, the NFL, in working with college football, said we will provide a scouting analysis by scouts and player personnel directors that will be delivered to each player who wants to leave school early and enter the NFL draft, to let them know and give them a fully vetted scouting report in a draft grade to say this is most likely where you are going to be drafted, so they are educated and informed. And then if they want to proceed to make a risky decision, they at least have the information. Otherwise, they can say, you know what? I don't want to go undrafted, or I don't want to get drafted in the 6th round. I want to do better than that. Okay? I'm going to stay in school. Many of these, as I've alluded to when we went through the various players who are at the quarterback position, who are in the current transfer portal, that many of these decisions I'm not understanding from a football standpoint. Now, there might be other things going on that I'm not privy to, but from a football standpoint, I don't understand the logic. So maybe, and I joked about it at the beginning about, it's cloudy this morning. I don't want to live here anymore. I want to move to LA. It's a little cold today. I'm going to move. I don't want to play for Minnesota anymore. Or it's, somebody looked at me the wrong way on campus. I'm going to leave Kansas State. Whatever. That some of these moves seem to be very rash, and instant gratification has taken over this society. And this seems to be another example of that, where conditions always look better elsewhere. That person looks better. That situation looks better. That job looks better. That state looks better. That house looks better. That whatever looks better. I can just go and try it out. and it doesn't necessarily turn out to be better. We're going to have players playing for a different school each one of their eligible seasons. This is going to happen. We've yet to see it happen, but we're getting there. Well, let me back up. I don't want to be inaccurate on that, because they have the opportunity to transfer once, correct? Once without hardship. So it should only happen once, I believe. But we do have examples of players playing at multiple schools, so I'm not completely understanding that. So I will plead some ignorance there. When it concerns some of these newer rules, I'm not exactly up to date, as I'm proving right here, because I'm thinking of Chase Bryce. Chase Bryce, Clemson, Duke, App State, 3 consecutive years. He might have been at Duke 2 years. So I don't know what the rule in play is there, but I'll find out at some point. So yeah, it's actually, as I mentioned earlier, Rico, it's worse than NFL free agency from the standpoint that I shouldn't say worse. It's more prevalent. It's more chaotic. It's more fluid. It's more unrestricted, because in the NFL, these players sign contracts, and as long as they're under contract, they're not free agents. Just the guys that have had their contract end become free agents. So only maybe 10 or 15% of the league, if that, probably something in that range, 10 or 15% of the NFL players in any given offseason are free agents, as opposed to everybody's a free agent if they want to be. Any player in college football this second is one decision away, 1 minute away, 1 moment away, 1 phone call away, 1 text away from being a free agent and entering the transfer portal. Anybody, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, they're the worst 2 examples I could possibly come up with, but you get the idea. Anybody, regardless of how good they are and how great a situation they have, they get to decide tomorrow that they want to enter the transfer portal. So it's not good for college football. It's good for us talking about it all the time. Center Point is telling us that we need better bowl matchups for sure. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, but I'm also not following it. What better bowl matchups do you want, and how would that be achieved? Is what I would like to know. Okay, we've got 3 callers on the line. We're going to take these 3 calls and call it a night here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, how are you, Mark?
I'm good. What's going on?
Good. So I've been thinking about this early signing day stuff and the transfer portal and how these kids are coming out. So from what I've heard, my school, they're holding out about 7 to 8 scholarships to keep those open for the transfer portal. So if you change up the early signing day, you know, how's that going to work out? I mean, some of these kids are going to want to sign tomorrow, right? As to get a spot, so to speak, and not have it pulled, or how's that work?
Okay, let's back up here a second. Who's your team?
You're going to be playing them on New Year's Day. So
Utah, nice. It's great to have a Utah fan.
Yep.
Awesome.
And I'm sure you wanted Oregon to beat Utah because I'm sure you wanted a little revenge, but
yeah, that would have been more
we had it coming.
But absolutely, Utah should be in the Rose Bowl for the first time. Okay, so like you're saying that, so the NCAA determined at the end of this past season that they were going to, not this season, the season before, that they were going to allow 7 additional scholarship spots on any roster because of the uncertainty of the transfer portal and particular programs gaining and losing players, because your net result isn't necessarily 0. You could lose 14 and only gain 8 and you're -6 or whatever. So the NCAA did that for, and they said that this isn't necessarily a rule that they are putting in stone going forward. They're going to reevaluate it each offseason to see if And this was partially due to the COVID situation and the expanded rosters, and partially because of this transfer portal. So that's one thing. So you're telling me that Utah has decided what? They're saving 7?
Well, I've heard, I've got some people that I know on the inside a little bit, and they want to keep, I mean, every school wants to have open spots for the transfer portal, you know, to fill some gaps and whatever. And from what I've heard, Utah wants to keep about 7 to 8 spots open for the transfer portal. So, you know, it's like you're saying, you know, we lost Peter Castelli. We're going to lose we've got a few juniors going into the NFL declaring. So, I mean, you do your count, but they still want to make sure that they have available scholarships for the transfer portal. And I guess my whole point is, you know, some of these kids coming out of high school, you know, now they're competing with transfer portal, because say, you know, you'd rather grab 15 how many transfer portal guys can you get per school? Is there a quota, a limit? You say?
That's a great question. I've never heard of a limit.
Right. So that's my point. Like, you know, say a school is just, they can't develop whatever, and they want to grab 15 to 20 portal kids, and, you know, they're not going to get high school kids. Is that playing into these kids' early signing? Like, I want to get my spot. If I sign this, I've got a spot, kind of a situation. So I can see a conundrum down the road between kids getting scholarships and transfer portals, and I can see where that might be hurting some opportunities as well in some programs.
Well, I understand what you're saying. The only thing to consider, though, is that the college football universe is not being altered, meaning the total population is not altered in any way. For every spot that's being taken by a transfer at Utah, for example, that could potentially be taking a spot away from an incoming freshman from high school, that spot is open somewhere else. There are still 85 scholarships on every roster in the country, and still 100 roughly. I know this gets tweaked a little bit.
Right, you're taking the totality.
105 roster spots.
All scholarships across all programs. So yeah, I see. Okay. That I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know what that's going to do to the landscape, and if it's going to even out, you know, if it's going to even out the playing field. I mean, NIL, I know the richer programs are going to be sitting a little better, obviously, but I do like the portal situation, so that, I mean, I know it's the Ohio State, you got Alabama, you got Georgia, you've got a lot of talented kids there sitting that, you know, should be starting somewhere and could get some NIL money, because maybe they're a star on another team. I mean, Cam Rising transferred from Texas to Utah, and he's literally probably, I mean, if you think about it, he's easily one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12, if not the best at this moment. And so, you know, what happens without this transfer portal? And he had to sit out a year because of the rules. You know, he transferred into Utah in 19. So I really love seeing this kind of stuff. TJ Pledger came in. He got a lot more reps at Utah. We got Tavian Thomas. You know, he was a transfer. So I really like the transfer portal, because these kids would have rotted somewhere else.
Yeah, and so that's a good point that you make about the NIL. And I've talked about this in the past, that on one hand, yeah, there's this overriding belief that all the major powers are going to collect all the best players. Well, they already do, but are going to collect the best players, and even more players are going to be attracted by NIL opportunities. But I think it's rare that somebody comes into the college ranks from high school and is so highly touted, like Quinn Ewers at Ohio State and now Texas, that they're going to make an NIL deal before they ever play it down. So that
right
is going to be a rarity. So therefore, basically, you have to play to be marketable. NIL companies are not going to be looking for the backup left guard at Utah to be giving money
Right.
to. So if you
could have a 9.
Yeah, if you can't make
You
it
could have
at pick your team. If you can't make it at Utah, go to Fresno State and play. And you're not going to become a millionaire, but you're going to maybe sign a sizable NIL deal as a starting running back at Fresno State, as opposed to staying in Utah.
And also Connor on here put Oregon State beat Cam Rising. No, the offense wasn't the issue against Oregon State. It was actually our defense that kind of fell on that. The offense did great, but so yeah, I mean, good luck to your Ohio State Buckeyes. And I mean, do they want to be there? I know they don't want to be there. They'd rather be somebody else, but do they want to be there?
Well, it
what do you
seems
think?
like just about every big time game that we look at in the playoffs or in the higher bowl games has this element to it, where if Ohio State loses this game, you are going to hear from a bunch of Ohio State fans, and I'm not calling them out as being awful people. I'm just going to say every fan base has its reasonable people and its delusional people. And the more petty of the group will say, you really didn't beat us. We didn't want to be there. We only care about the playoff, whatever. That's a big excuse. It might be true, but we can't give wins and losses based on who's motivated and who's not. If anything, I think it's a discredit to any school or any coach or any team that says we're not competitors. If you can't show up and play in a Rose Bowl in front of tens of millions of people on TV, then you must not be a competitor. So don't make excuses about losing. There was a game to be played. Then show up and play and do your best and win the game.
So as a Utah fan, believe me, I have heard that, because in the 2008, 2009 season, we had a way less, I wouldn't say less talented, but they had Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, who else? Guys that were superstars in the NFL were on that team. And when you remind people that Utah beat Bama in 08, 09, we didn't want to be there. And so, you're just like, well, what do you want us to do? We beat you.
Exactly. And so what I try to do in that case is what I just alluded to. I make it even more of an embarrassment to say, I would have more respect for Alabama and Alabama fans if they said, you know what, we wanted to be there. We did our best and still lost. Okay, well, at least you were a competitor. And you showed up. You did your best. We just turned out to be better that night. And that's what it was, as opposed to, you're a quitter. You're not a competitor. Okay, you didn't show up. Okay, well, that's who you are then. You have just let us know that you don't care about competition. You didn't come to play.
You just disrespected yourself by just laying down on the field.
Absolutely. So for every
Ohio
State,
I am worried
Georgia,
about your guys'
Alabama,
receivers.
Yes, go ahead.
Because we were all freshman DBs to begin with. We had one sophomore, and he went down, I think, in the San Diego State game. And so I think our walk-on went down in the conference championship game in the fourth quarter. Our walk-on freshman DB went down. It was the third backup. So I'm scared shitless of those receivers coming in. I mean, we got Clark Phillips, and he's a bright spot, but he can't cover 3 guys. So I'm just hoping our pass rush can do what we did to Alabama and get in there quick enough. If not, we're going to be in trouble. So.
Yeah,
but it should be a beautiful setting.
Yeah, sure. If the teams are motivated and want to play, I expect it to be a competitive game. I do believe Ohio State's a more talented team. I don't know if they're the better team, but I'm pretty confident they're more talented. But it should be
on
a
paper,
really good
game. Yeah. High school evaluation and what they've shown on the field. I mean, those 3 receivers.
Yeah.
And I think even the 2 or 3 on your bench could probably go in the NFL in 2 years. Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
They're just stacked back there. And sometimes, and I was having a discussion with a gentleman, and I said, these guys that are going to the NFL, you might be better with Wilson and those guys opting out, because even if they're in, like we're talking, are they going to give 100%? Are they going to be scared of getting hurt?
Yeah.
When you got a guy on the bench that's hungry, that's got all that talent, he may end up being more productive, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. It makes more sense. Or it makes
sense.
So,
I mean, yeah. All right. Well, I've taken up enough of your time, and hope we get a good Rose Bowl. That'd be nice.
Appreciate the call. Tell Utah fans that we're here talking college football every day.
Yeah, I've got to start sharing it. I'm on here all the time, so
I appreciate that.
I'll get it out.
You have a good one.
You bet, Mark.
Thanks.
You too. Bye.
Yeah, I have no doubt that if we evaluated these rosters in 5 years, that Ohio State has more NFL players by far. I actually did a Now, this isn't fair, but I did this with a number of bowl game matchups. I posted on the Ohio State channel a comparison of their all-time winning percentages, their all-time bowl game records, their all-time NFL draft picks, or overall first-round NFL draft picks. I think the all-time first-round, I won't try to recite it. Anyway, the consensus All-Americans on those two teams, those two schools, 90-9. Every number was like that all time. But of course, those teams aren't playing in a month. It's just these 2021 teams. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hey, Hunter. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on?
Well, I finally have some hope that Alabama can win a national championship this year.
Wait a minute. You didn't have hope of that in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August? Okay.
Well, I did early.
I wish you would have talked to me about it. I wish you would have talked to me. I would have given you hope every week of the season. None of this is surprising me.
Well, see, the thing is I just thought that the way that the inconsistency that they were playing with, and I thought that eventually we were going to mess up again and lose to a team maybe like Arkansas, and especially to Auburn at Auburn. So, in the way that we played in that Iron Bowl game. Now it is an Iron Bowl, so we have to kind of give recognize that for what it is. But I just thought that we struggled, and I didn't think we were going to beat Georgia at all. I didn't think we were going to be able to pull that one off, but I didn't completely doubt Nick Saban. I knew that we could do it. It basically happened the way that I said it was going to happen if we were going to win that game. And so I'm ecstatic. I think that Cincinnati is a good team, and they're going to give us all they got. And I just hope that it's Alabama versus Michigan instead of Alabama versus Georgia.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take that. Anything
do you think
else?
Do you think Michigan upsets Georgia?
Do I think Michigan's going to upset Georgia? Well, I will let you know that I was asked that on Michigan podcast today, and I had an answer that I won't divulge, not because I want him to get more views necessarily, which I do, but because he's going to keep it. I think he's holding this for a week, so I don't want that to go out there. So I made a prediction at that point. I don't like making predictions generally until I have tried to figure out what's going to happen and we get close to the game.
How do you think that what do you see?
I can tell you what I think the keys are.
Okay.
Here's the keys to the game, in my opinion. I think the biggest key to the game is Georgia evaluating its offensive line and saying, okay, Michigan has these two monster defensive ends, David Njoku and Aiden Hutchinson. Can we block them with our two tackles? Are they good enough? Ohio State thought their two tackles were good enough, and those guys are going to both play in the NFL and be pretty high picks. So Georgia's going to have to make that evaluation. Kirby Smart, if I were him, I'd lean on the offensive line coach and say, Ohio State couldn't block those two guys. What makes us think that we can without help? So you really need to sell me that our tackles are even better, that they can block on an island. Otherwise, I would rather have players stay in. And when I'm saying a tight end, not Brock Bowers, I want him out on a route, but I want a bigger back / tight end in to help because I'd rather have one less guy in the pattern than protecting, unless you can somehow prove to me that we can block them. And even if you can prove that to me, we're going to have a game plan that's going to be able to adjust that very quickly. If we're 2 series in and we show that we can't block those two guys, then we are going to make that adjustment. So that's number one. Number two, I think George Pickens could be a huge factor in this game because I don't think he's quite right, but with another 3 weeks of rest and reps coming off that ACL, I think that he could be a big factor in this game. I do think that Michigan may have issues with their linebackers trying to cover Brock Bowers. He's an exceptional tight end, quickly becoming one of the best in the country in his freshman season. Stetson Bennett turns the ball over at the worst possible times in big games against good teams. Cade McNamara has protected the ball for Michigan, done an exceptional job preventing mistakes. So I'd give Michigan the quarterback edge. And that Michigan offensive line against the Georgia defensive line, it's astounding to me how well Alabama went from being a team that couldn't block LSU a month ago and Auburn in the Iron Bowl to a team that blocked the best front in college football effectively.
Yeah, I agree with your keys to the game there. For that game, I would just like it when the teams that have historically been good are good, and I think it would be a real good matchup. Just from a brand standpoint, if it was Alabama versus Michigan. And so from that standpoint, that's kind of why I would like it to be that way.
Okay.
One more question before I let you go. How do you see this Alabama versus Cincinnati game shaping out? I mean, you're going to give me a prediction necessarily, but what do you think are the likely outcomes or the key to the game for Cincinnati or both teams?
So I know Cincinnati less than I know the other 3 teams. I'll let everybody know that because I watched the Power 5 almost exclusively on Saturdays in the SEC and the Big Ten pretty prominently. So I'm going to say I know Cincinnati the least. I want to be able to tell you that I've got some kind of great breakdown for you right now without just telling you when you were going to say, how do you see this game playing out? You said something like maybe the top 3 ways or something like that. And my response was going to be something like, I don't know, 41-17, 42-17, and 45-17. I don't see this being much of a game. It could be for a half.
Well, you see, I don't know if it's just the sports media really hyping up Cincinnati because they want them to feel like them getting in is a big accomplishment, and it is. But I think that they want to give them more of a chance than what maybe the eye test might suggest otherwise. it's just hard to beat for any team. I mean, you've seen it even with Georgia. It's hard to beat somebody a team like Alabama, who has many 4 and 5 college recruits on their team, versus, an American conference that, it is what it is. It's just not the same as, the other Power 5 conferences. So they just don't play the level of competition. Now, they did beat Notre Dame, and good for them, but they just do not play the level of competition that the other schools in the Power 5 play. So that's my issue with it.
Yeah, well, the Notre Dame game and the Georgia game in the Peach Bowl, even though Georgia was missing a lot of players, lead me to believe that it's possible that Cincinnati could, on a given night, and that's going to be one given night on New Year's Eve, could give Alabama a really good game. But I also look back at playoff history amongst teams that I thought were more comparable, and it just seems like the better teams, whether those were all these Alabama teams or the LSU team in 19 or certain Ohio State teams or certain Clemson teams, just they become, even when they're super focused, motivated at their pinnacle, they become like take the LSU Oklahoma game in the semifinal in 19. LSU led that game by 5 touchdowns at halftime and just completely obliterated Oklahoma. Well, if they would have played in the regular season, shoot, LSU played Texas that season, and Texas wasn't nearly as good as Oklahoma, and LSU barely beat them. They scored late, and it was a really good game, and they beat them. They would have never beaten Oklahoma 63-14 during the regular season, just because they played a number of teams that weren't as good as Oklahoma, and they didn't beat them that bad. But when they were razor sharp on their game, motivated, laser focused, totally motivated, playoff, I think the talent gaps get accentuated. They seem to have in this playoff era, and even in the BCS games. They seem that the gaps get wider when the athletes are playing at their peak motivation. And that's why I think this could get out of hand.
Well, let me just say this. I thought that I went to the game, the Alabama-Washington game. I felt that Washington team was a lot better shape of pulling an upset than I think Cincinnati is pulling an upset on this Alabama team. That kind of shows you, where I think that this whole thing plays out.
Well, you know better than I do because you were at the game, but I remember that game pretty well. And Washington they were fully capable and prepared and up to the task on one side of the ball. Their defense was good enough to win a playoff game. Like, that game was 17-7 until early fourth quarter, and then they tacked on another touch. So you're looking at a 17-7 game. And I can think of a handful of times where Washington's offense put their defense in a horrible spot. They fumbled. There might have been a pick in there, but I know that they fumbled at least once, if not twice, around midfield or in their own territory.
They did twice.
And put their defense in a bad spot. Their defense held. So the defense played the Alabama offense pretty well. After that first drive when Washington scored, obviously their offense could not do anything. And so their offense was a mismatch. Jake Browning wasn't an NFL caliber type quarterback that you typically need to win playoff games. And their offensive line wasn't nearly as good. And even though they had John Ross at wide receiver, who was a first-round NFL player, against that secondary when they only had one threat of that caliber, they were just mismatched from an offensive standpoint. But their defense was definitely a tremendous defense.
Yeah, yeah, they did. They fumbled twice, and it was kind of, if you remember correctly, remember they scored first. They were first up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, that's what I say. After the first drive, their offense was inept after that.
Yeah, so they just weren't able to create. Remember, that was a really good group of Alabama defensive backs that year.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of shut them out as far as that goes. But I thought going into that game that, hey, this could be a game if their defense shows up the way it is and their offense clicks. And I thought that Jake Browning was a decent quarterback, for a college quarterback, So I mean, I like Luke Fickell. I like what he's done there at Cincinnati. We cannot not give him credit for what he's done there, but I just don't think that the level of competition can withstand this Alabama team. Now, like you said, anything can happen on any given night. But I think after that Auburn game, I think that's when the whole team at Alabama, on both sides of the ball, more so on defense, really realized, hey, if we don't play to our best of our ability every game, we don't give up 100%. We're not going to win a championship. And I think that's something that Nick Saban probably heart-drawn throughout the week leading up to that Georgia game. And I think this team now believes in itself. And I think that's part of the problem was the inconsistency that we saw is that I just felt like this team really didn't believe in themselves. And I think Nick Saban just harped on that. And then they were able to gain some confidence there in the first half against Georgia. And I think now this team is a lot more confident in itself than it was, after that Auburn game.
All right, Hunter. Well, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thanks. 2 more calls right here at the Voice of College Football. Remind everyone that Wednesday is National Signing Day. We will be here full throttle all the time, 9 a.m. Not that I'm going to be here live all the time, but I'm going to be monitoring National Signing Day. We've got Oklahoma, Michigan, Florida State, and Miami live shows. Plus, I will record segments, go live possibly during the afternoon, depending on the news that comes out concerning National Signing Day. Welcome in, everyone. Next caller.
Minnesota Dave.
Minnesota Dave. How's it going?
How's it going, Mike?
I'm good. What's going on?
My question for you is, well, first of all, I have a little argument right now of a friend of mine that went to St. Thomas University. I don't know. I think you pretty much know that they were the D3 school that now is joined Bowl subdivision or 1A or 1A. I think it was a 1-2A or something like that. What used to be called. He told me that they have 3 years of probationary period before they can join the Big Sky Conference with like schools like North and South Dakota, I think. And I said, well, normally it's like a 5-year wait, and then they can join the conference. So I don't know if you know about the wait line for beginning from one division to another. That's my question for you on that. And my other one is, did you get my super chat on Saturday? Because I don't know if you did.
Your super chat on Saturday. Well, I know that I typically look at these super chats after we get off to make sure that I didn't miss any, and I typically don't miss any. Once in a while, I'll see where, oh, shoot, I missed that one. I didn't see it, and I can't recall on Saturday, whether I did or not. I appreciate it. Was there any kind of question attached to it?
Well, yeah, the question was I asked you if you wanted a Minnesota helmet or a PJ Flex bobblehead.
Well, we have yet to start the bobblehead collection, so he would be the first, although I've got a Jim Tressel somewhere, but of course, he is no longer on the sideline. But yeah, the Minnesota helmet would look good. I need a P.O. box, apparently, to do that, and so maybe I'll set that up. I think Kyle Pickett had I looked into getting a P.O. box a couple of years ago, and it just wasn't. I didn't see where it was worth it. But I think our guy Lewis looked that up for me here recently, and Kyle said that he would pick up the P.O. box. So if we get that in play, I would certainly display a Minnesota helmet proudly.
Okay.
So
and then at the end of it, I basically said you have to get rid of that ugly red block W.
Oh, well, yeah, that's non-negotiable. That stays, that's part of the we'll actually put that one right behind me. I don't think the Badgers have gotten enough time here recently, so we're gonna thanks for reminding me. We'll put that right over my shoulder. What was your question about moving divisions? What are the stipulations on a team?
Yeah, what is like their tryout period or the probationary period? I know they have one.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
and they've all met it.
The school
so I think they've all done their homework to know whether they're capable of meeting it. I do remember when some schools like Kent State were in trouble in retaining their Division I status or FBS status at the time, that I remember being more on top of and reading through what the stipulations are regarding. I know attendance was a big one. Their budget was a big one. Those were two in particular, just maintaining a certain level of attendance, which can be skewed and can be manipulated a number of ways. Shoot, you can give away tickets at the local bank to try to meet your ticket sale requirements. But anyway, so those were two things that come to mind that a school has to meet and maintain to keep its FBS status. But I'm sure that can be Googled. That's what I would do. I don't.
Okay.
Again, I've read those things in the past, but I don't retain. That's not necessarily been at the forefront of something that I've been that interested in.
I know St. Thomas is going to will use the Minnesota United soccer stadium for their games. That holds about 19,000. That's good for one bowl subdivision school. Hello?
Here you go, Minnesota Dave. See, this is what I call a Google question. I just looked up the FBS status requirements. Boom. Football bowl subdivision membership requirements. There it is. NCAA.org.
All right.
Bingo. All right, man. Well, I appreciate the call.
Okay.
Have a good one.
I will talk to you later.
Thank you so much, Minnesota Dave. Have a good one. All right. Last caller of the night, pre-National Signing Day, or if you must, National Signing Day Eve. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Well, it looks like you saved the best for last, Mark. Reasonable Gump. How are you doing?
Reasonable Gump. Look at that. How's it going?
It's going all right, man. Looks like you've been streaming for, what is it, like two and a half, 2.5 hours now.
Oh yeah, let's see.
Of course, you don't get tired. You're like a vampire.
2:26. Yes. Oh, we're not even close to going to bed if you're talking about that. But I definitely am just about done with this stream. That's for sure. But appreciate you calling. What's on your mind?
Well, man, let's talk about some bowl topics right here.
Okay.
Now, if you remember a few months ago, you and I had a conversation about bowl affiliation.
Yeah.
How bowls right now are tied to conferences and how I'm very against it and you were mostly defending it.
Yep.
So I'm going to bring up this example right here. Let's go back and let's rewind the clock about a week and let's say that what we all thought was going to happen did happen, and that was that Alabama would have lost to Georgia.
Okay.
Alabama would be going to the Sugar Bowl right now, right?
Okay.
Okay. So because of affiliations, we would have had Alabama playing Baylor. Who cares? And Ohio State, because of affiliations, and is still going to play Utah. Who cares? This is my point right now. Why did they make it impossible to ever have a matchup like that outside the playoffs? That's my problem with affiliations, is you will never get, or it's all nearly impossible to get some teams from different conferences that are not affiliated with each other in these bowl games to meet in these big kind of matchups during bowl season if it's not in the playoffs. And right now, the non-playoff Big Ten team will always play a Pac-12 team, which usually means the game is not going to be worth watching. And I don't mean really, literally not worth watching. Obviously, some people will see it. I mean that Ohio State, come on, if they bring their whole team, they're in a different league than Utah, skill-wise, talent-wise, brand-wise, you name it. But because the Rose Bowl has an affiliation, it doesn't matter. Their hands are tied. They cannot have the option to play Alabama or Oklahoma or Notre Dame. That could be happening right now. Neither of them in the playoffs. Why in the world can't we have an Ohio State-Notre Dame matchup? Wouldn't that be awesome? This is my problem with affiliations. And I wanted to hear your comment on that. Do you not see some sort of problem with this?
Well, I don't think it's a problem. It's a preference. I get your point. It makes it more. We'll use the two teams that you started with. It makes it more unlikely that Ohio State and Alabama outside of the playoff will play in a bowl game, because you would think that under some kind of system in which bowls would be able to select whomever they want, and there would be a pecking order that under about every condition you could possibly conceive, if those two teams miss the playoffs, that would be the first two teams that any bowl would scarf up to say,
right,
regardless of their record, you probably say, we want those two teams to play, because they'll probably shoot. They might outdraw a bad playoff matchup. Anyway,
right,
exactly. So I get it. There's a possibility that they would fall one other spot, and the next two spots are both SEC Big Ten games, the Citrus Bowl and the Outback Bowl, but they rarely, if ever, drop to that degree. But I get your point. I just I guess we've just continued to jettison into the future of just nothing from the past mattering, or nothing from the past being held true. And so I guess you've got to put yourself, and I guess you could, as an Alabama fan that's tied to the SEC and the Sugar Bowl, I guess you're just a little bit more progressive than I am. But part of me is tied to growing up in the Midwest as an Ohio State fan, and by extension a Big Ten fan, and wanting, and just it being something that's right with the world, even if Ohio State's not playing, that Michigan and USC are playing in the Rose Bowl and not Notre Dame and Florida, because they're the two teams the Rose Bowl wanted to play?
Well, two things. Well, one, I get what you mean by, being an SEC or being progressive or something. I might counter that maybe I'm actually reaching farther back into history than you are, because Alabama has a very storied history with the Rose Bowl until the Big Ten and the Pac-12 took that away in 1936, if you weren't sure of the year. But anyway,
but you have no connection to that, except for reading that, except for having head knowledge of that.
And study.
You have no
and
visceral.
Studying it and immersing myself in it. I love history. I love college football history.
Sure.
So, I have about as much connection to it as you do of games that you didn't actually see. You just read about and studied, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
And you care about those games.
Yeah, I do.
So I don't really see why you.
I'm not completely dissing that, but people generally do have a much stronger connection to something that they actually experienced versus something that they read about that happened in 1936. I have more of a connection.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the words Rose Bowl are actually in the Alabama fight song. So every time we play it and we sing it, we actually kind of live it a little bit. I'm not sure if you knew that.
I did not.
So it is a little more than ancient history. That's all. That's the only thing I'm trying to get at. But to go a different direction to this, like SEC players, because of this, unless they get in a playoff bid that happens to be in the Rose Bowl, they don't ever get the opportunity to travel there. They're relegated to getting on a bus for like 3 hours or something and going to New Orleans. I'm not saying New Orleans is a bad place to be on New Year's Eve. It's probably one of the best. But it just kind of sucks that they never had the option to. And look at the other side. Big Ten schools or Pac-12 schools their players don't get the option to come travel to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. So I'm not saying this is just for trying to get the SEC in the Rose Bowl. This is trying to get all teams in all the different bowls, or at least give them the opportunity to. And I actually think a bowl draft sort of, system would work pretty well. Maybe the Rose Bowl, because it's the first biggest and the first one, maybe it's always the first pick. And then maybe the Sugar Bowl and Fiesta and Orange, Cotton. I actually think the Cotton Bowl should be really high up there too. That's a really historic one, and they kind of like what you alluded to in the beginning, and they draw teams based off story matchups. It doesn't have to be big brand matchups all the time. It can be something that tells an interesting story. I think the Florida and UCF game is interesting, and it's going to be hilarious when Florida loses that. It wouldn't just be Ohio State and Alabama either. I think a lot of bowls would want to draw Notre Dame and Alabama, or Ohio State and Oklahoma, or Notre Dame and Michigan State. By the way, that could have happened. Why in the world didn't they do that this year?
Yeah.
So I think there's just one of the ways, and this wouldn't fix bowl system or bowl season, but I think it would make it better, is if they would do a better job of creating interesting games. I don't want to see Notre Dame play Oklahoma State. It's kind of interesting with the two really good defenses, and both teams, just kind of barely missing out of the playoffs. I get it, but those teams have no history. They have no connection. They have no coach connection or transfer player connection, or hell, I don't even think they have any common opponents. I mean, I could be mistaken on that. But Michigan State and Notre Dame have a large history. That would have been a great bowl game. They're both very evenly seeded, talented teams. Well, not talented, but skill wise, they both performed pretty comparable to each other. So, and by the way, while I'm on this, you're an Ohio State guy and you're a college football historian guy. How in the world has Ohio State and Notre Dame only played 6 times in the entire history? I just looked this up. They played twice in the 30s and then went almost 100 years or so before the 90s. These are two blue blood Big Ten, ancient history programs that have like carried the torch for the Midwest. How in the world is it that they've avoided each other pretty much for 100 years?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, except when I was growing up, and that would be brought up every so often. And, it's the 1980s, let's say at the time. And I'm hearing, I'm looking back, and they split 2 games in 1935, 36. I think they split 2 games. Maybe Notre Dame won both of them. Anyway, I know Notre Dame had a big comeback in one of the 2 games. But anyway, and I actually remember being in college when Ohio State and Notre Dame signed the contract to play in 1995 and 6. And I had a few Notre Dame friends. And this is when Lou Holtz was there. They had just won the national championship. Then they just finished number 2 in 1989. Cooper had just arrived. Ohio State wasn't that good. And these guys just laughed at me about how Notre Dame was going to kill Ohio State. And of course, things were much different like 6 years later, and Ohio State beat them 2 years in a row. And yeah, then they other than those 2, those are the only 2 modern day scheduled games. The other 2 games that they played recently, they played in 2 Fiesta Bowls in after the 05 and the 15 seasons. So those were obviously matchups that came about because of bowl pairings in the Fiesta Bowl that Ohio State won. That that's it. They're going to play next year to start the season. Do you understand? Do you realize they're playing the season opener?
I did not, but
yes,
there you go.
There's a game to look forward to.
At least they're making some sort of effort now.
Yeah.
All right, man. So just the last topic, won't keep you long. I watched your video about the Stetson Bennett the fourth and JT discussion.
Yes.
Now I'm not going to get into the whole this Kirby Smart's been doing this every year.
He had a derogatory comment about that must have been it. He had a derogatory comment to make about something I said.
Well, I mean, I was just stating that he did the same thing with the exact same 2 guys last year.
Sure, he did. Well, no.
Because
not as I understand it.
Go ahead.
As I understand it, okay, he selected DeJuan Mathis as the opening day starter. He benched him at halftime.
True.
Put in Stetson Bennett against Arkansas, game 1. Bennett played pretty well. They obviously won most of their games except for Florida and Alabama. And JT Daniels, it's my understanding, wasn't physically ready to play until they actually put him on the field. And I think that was against Mississippi State.
Yes, I know that's your understanding. It's not a correct one. Kirby Smart himself, without being asked this, by the way, he volunteered the information in a press conference for week 2 against Auburn last year. He said JT Daniels is cleared to play week 2. And then after that Mississippi State game that you just spoke of, JT Daniels was being interviewed. And I don't have his exact quote, but it's my paraphrase is pretty close. He said he was ready to go after week 2. After that, it was a quote, and this is a quote, coach's decision. So, no, he was not injured up until the Mississippi State game. That is a false narrative. I'm sure Uncle Lou would tell you all about it. He knows more than I do, but he was not injured for over half the season. It was, for his words, a coach's decision to not play him.
Okay.
But anyway, so what I wanted to ask is and I think I did ask this, but you may not have seen this because it was the second comment I made. Why are we talking about JT versus Stetson Bennett? This is what I don't understand how we got here. Why isn't it JT versus Carson Beck or this Brock Vandergrift guy? Don't you find that curious? How did we go from JT being injured, which he was in the beginning of the year? Why did we then jump all the way to the 4th string quarterback? Because he was listed as the 4th string coming out of spring practice and coming out of summer camp. He was listed as that. Why do you think Kirby Smart never gave this guy Carson Beck, Mr. Football in the state of Florida, or Brock Vandergriff, this 4 or 5-star whatever guy. He's getting all these elite quarterbacks. Why don't you think he gave them a chance against, let's be honest, Georgia's marginable competition in the early part of the year? That's what doesn't that strike you as strange that he just went straight to Stetson Bennett?
Well, I think it goes back to when he originally went to Stetson Bennett, which would have been against Arkansas game 1 of 2020. He didn't go to him before that. Obviously, it was Jake Fromm's team before that. So the first time he went to him was week 1. I think, this is just a guess, is that Kirby Smart is one of those old school football coaches that says basically, okay, we're going to have a competition for the job. Unless there's a guy that's already here that's playing pretty well, and as long as we're winning, he keeps the job. And I can see future NFL players to my left and to my right throw the ball all over the place. But if this dude's winning games, and he might be winning them 13-7, but he's winning the games, he's going to keep the job.
Mm-hmm. Then it is just strange to me that he wasn't heralded and publicly listed as the backup guy from the get-go. Like, it was surprising everyone when he came in, or when he started against, I want to say it was South Carolina. Most Georgia guys I saw or listened to, like Uncle Lou or Big Dog Brett, were all pretty convinced that it would be Carson Beck because he was listed as a second string guy. That's what's confused. That's what's fishy to me, is why didn't Kirby Smart own that and put it in, put his arm around his shoulder and say, yeah, this is our backup guy, and our first guy just went down, he's got a foot injury, so Stetson Bennett's got the job, he's our man. That's what's weird to me. I mean, obviously he's been doing that since then. He's had nothing but good things to say about Stetson Bennett, and to be perfectly honest, as well he should, because I don't know what game you watched or what other Georgia fans watched. I don't think Stetson Bennett was responsible for Georgia losing to Alabama. He threw for over 300 yards and a few touchdowns. I don't really know what else they wanted.
Yeah, he threw 3 touchdowns.
It's just weird to me. Yeah. What happened in the beginning of the year is weird to me. I don't understand why they listed these guys. By the way, Carson, but this is his second year there. He's had time to learn the offense. He was a highly recruited guy. I don't understand why he wasn't given the second job instead of Stetson Bennett.
Well, I would think that regardless of whether there's some kind of politics involved, or that Kirby Smart's making an honest, if not mistake-ridden decision, that there's going to be some defections after the season's over, you would think. I wouldn't think that a Carson Beck would sit for 2020 and 21 and go into 22 with maybe not a great shot at winning a job before he would say, hey, I can play at plenty of places, or at least be given a shot. I don't have the answer for you, because it all seems very odd to me as well. But I do think that I had some sense or some component to the argument to go all the way back to Fields and Fromm to say this is his history of playing it safe.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think you are right that he is this old school guy who just sees this quarterback here that's not losing a game for him, and he's got a bunch of elite talent around him, and so he feels comfortable sticking with him. And if he would have come out in the beginning or throughout the entire spring and summer, and it was clear to everyone that Stetson Bennett is the backup guy, and he's the one taking all the reps after Georgia's up by 30 points and stuff, if it was clear like that, we wouldn't really be having this conversation, I don't think. It would have just been clear from the get-go. It was just the fishiness of whatever happened, of why it sort of took everyone by surprise. But I think COVID, the COVID season, the free season that everyone got is the reason why Carson Beck is still there, because he's basically got a free year last year and he can redshirt this year.
Yeah.
So he's not losing anything by just hanging out with the Georgia coaching staff and practicing with elite players.
Yeah.
Right there.
He might be getting
he
better.
Can transfer into a 4 years eligibility.
Yeah. He'll be going, who knows? I was going to throw out on any number of schools he could be playing for next year. He could be the starting quarterback at North Carolina or TCU or whoever. Who knows?
Well, one last thing, and trust me, I'm not keeping you on any longer, but one last thing, I know Georgia fans are aware of this, but just anyone who's on the line, anyone who's watching might not be. Watson has another year of eligibility. Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I know.
But
that's going to be fun to watch.
To your point, he made one awful decision that a number of quarterbacks can make, and if it's thrown in a different way at a different time in a different position on the field and doesn't become a pick six, then it's not as ugly. But he obviously didn't account for who was it? Malachi Moore? Battle.
Yeah.
One of those two made
it was Battle in the first quarter. He didn't. It slipped through his hands. It would have been a pick six. It was an awful decision, but he just ended up having to pay for that one.
Oh, well, I don't remember.
So it was actually two awful. It was two awful decisions, one of which he had to pay for.
That's killing my point here because I don't remember the one that was dropped. So, shoot, fire. I'm the one that typically argues, well, this is what should have happened because, this quarterback didn't control. You know what I mean? That wasn't the quarterback's fault. He threw a perfect pass, but it hit the guy in between the numbers and bounced up in the air and got picked off. That kind of thing. That this is the way it should have been. And I try to evaluate players based on what they did, not the outcome was out of their control. And therefore, Stetson Bennett could have thrown 2 pick sixes. I was going to say the only horrible mistake he made was the pick six. The other one, there was a miscommunication between he and Bowers in the red zone in terms of the way he was going to run that route. And he got undercut by the DB, who was at Helms, that picked off the pass in the red zone.
Yeah. No, he definitely made 2 really bad throws, one of which was a pick six. The other one would have been had we not dropped it.
Yeah.
All that being said, he still threw for I think it's 350-something yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm not saying he had a great game. He didn't. He had an okay to good game, but it wasn't. I still don't think he was. It's all the quarterback that lost the game. No, it's Georgia's front seven not being able to get past the wet paper bag that has been Alabama's O-line all year. That's what lost them the game. Oh, that and the fact that their safeties were playing 5 yards too deep. I have no idea what they were thinking. They're playing that deep off guys like John Mechie and James Williams who are just going to catch a slant and undercut them every single time. I have no idea where they got their defensive scheme from. But I mean that's what was kind of weirding me out the whole game.
Yeah.
But anyway,
we'll see if Kirby can make some adjustments.
He should.
All right, Reasonable Gump.
So you're really not pulling for Michigan, huh?
This playoff.
No Big Ten homerism.
This playoff is harder for me to root for than any I can remember. Yeah, it is. I don't know who to root for. I guess I'm rooting for Cincinnati, but they have absolutely no shot. This may come back to bite me, but I'll be on record as saying they're going to lose this game by 25 points minimum. And so I guess I'm rooting for Georgia. Maybe I'll root for Georgia. I don't know. I'm not rooting. I'm a neutral college football guy. I don't root for anyone. I'm just here to talk to all of you.
If you wanted to go back and show your preseason prediction, then I guess you'd be somewhat pull for Alabama because you predicted Alabama to beat Georgia twice.
I sure did. That's still alive. My national championship game
prediction
is still alive.
I don't know how that's still alive, but it somehow still is.
And
it was a weird November.
Notre Dame and Ohio State screwed me. They should have been there too. I just missed. All right, man.
All right, man.
Thanks for the call.
Good talking with you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. All right, folks. I guess one more, even though I said no more. I hate when people are waiting. I don't want people to wait, so we'll take this one. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. My name's Joe. I'm a first-time caller.
Yeah, what's going on?
I got a couple football questions for you. There's a guy named Dudley Dawson in the chat and Antoine Johnson. Have they called in tonight?
So this is Joe, a first-time caller, correct?
Joe in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, Dudley Dawson says that when it's all said and done at the end of the year, Michigan's going to win the title, and we're going to say Georgia was a little bit overrated and Alabama was a little bit inexperienced. Is that possible?
It's possible. Is it also possible that you're related to George in Oregon? Are you guys cousins?
He's my twin. You know George?
I know George.
This is creepy.
George is phenomenal.
This is creepy.
It's the guy.
We must think alike. Great minds think alike. Anyway, this is a legitimate question. Antoine Johnson, like an hour ago in the chat, he asked a couple serious football questions. He said, isn't Michigan faster than Georgia if you compare them on paper? That's a good question. Are they?
Are they faster?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that it's negligible, meaning you got 100 players.
But they're as fast anyway. Otherwise, why would he ask the question if he didn't already know? And he said he wants you to tell him what is Georgia's advantage over Michigan.
Georgia's advantage over Michigan. Georgia's got better linebackers than Michigan's got. Georgia's got a better tight end than Michigan's got. Georgia's got better overall depth. I'd say the secondaries are pretty comparable. I think Georgia's got
Dudley thinks
a better interior.
Dudley thinks Michigan is.
Yep.
Dudley thinks Michigan's going to run the ball down Georgia's throat for the whole game.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible?
No. I think they'll have to do other things. That doesn't mean that they can't do other things in the passing game that's going to open up the run, but I don't think they can just hand the ball off every play and run the ball down their throats. They couldn't do that against Wisconsin. They didn't do that against Rutgers.
I would almost just like to see it happen just for the heck of it, for Michigan's sake.
Yes. All right, George.
They've been a long time waiting.
You're breaking rules here that are not allowed.
Listen, Robert Testero in the chat just said, I can't wait for George to come out and say, I'm only kidding, it's George. So it's George.
All right, George. Have a good one.
I only called because of John DeLune. It's his fault. He made me do it.
Okay. We'll blame John.
All right.
Good Lord. I'm not on here long enough. And I got to have people calling again, even if it is George. Seriously. All right. National Signing Day tomorrow. We're going to be all over the place. That's how I'll state it. Just without going through details, we'll be all over the place. We got Oklahoma, Michigan, Florida State, Miami live shows. I guess that is detailed. And I will jump on here if I believe something is worth reporting. That I'm not going to regurgitate what you can read online. But if I've got a take on something, then I will deliver it right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you. You guys make this work. Best discussion, debate, and analysis because of you. We will see you soon. That means National Signing Day.